The GT1 World Championship has reached its halfway stage at Navarra in Spain, and no one has been able to dominate us yet. The season began in Abu Dhabi, and under floodlights on the Yas Marina circuit, the Ford of Max Martin made a poor getaway, allowing Bernoldi to snatch the lead for Nissan. It was a poor start for Belgian racing, but it was about to go wrong for the leading Nissan, almost unnoticed in the brawl that went on down pit lane. Hexis AMR had managed to pull a fast one, and their car, which had been fifth, exited ahead, while the Nissan and Ford both earned extra pit stops. So Clivio Piccioni could only wait to see if rookie teammate Stef Dusseldorp would hold on for the win. And when he did, the celebrations began. Round 2 brought the teams to Zolder, but a disastrous start for Nissan saw them lose 2 cars before turn 1. The Zonta ricocheted into Campbell Walter, putting them both out immediately. And not long afterwards, Peter Dumbreck attempted a pass at turn 2, which ended up in retirement as well. There was action aplenty, but after their first podium finish in Abu Dhabi, Marc Vasseng and Markus Winkelhock were on a roll. Having won the qualifying race, they repeated that performance in the championship race in some style. 2 events and 2 winners. The first ever victory in GT1 for Alinkel.com Munich Motorsport meant that Marc Vasseng and Markus Winkelhock became leaders of the championship. Portimao on the Algarve hosted round 3, and now the Nissans began to shine. Richard Westbrook continued on from his qualifying race win to stamp his authority in the early stages. Behind him, the dips and climbs of Portimao appeared to be claiming some victims. But even then, there were concerned faces on the pit wall as gearbox oil temperatures on the lead Nissan were going stratospheric. Peter Dumbreck took over at the pit stop. But despite his very best efforts to nurse the car home, the gearbox jammed, allowing teammate Michael Krum to go past. And then finally, the transmission gave up altogether, and Dumbreck was out. A quick stop from Mucker and Turner put their Aston ahead of the Sumo Power Nissan of Babham and Campbell Walter, but nothing could deny the German driver pairing of Krum and Law from taking their first win together. The number 23 car has one of the strongest driver pairings in the field. The 40-year-old Krum and the 31-year-old Luhr are good mates as well. Next up was the sinuous Sachsenring. Max Martin started the Ford from pole, but a first corner shunt accounted for him and delayed the Hexis Aston of Stef Dusseldorp, while Thomas Enger got hit on the opening lap as well, ending any chance that he may have had. Off too went the Al Inkel Lambo with an errant wheel. And a puncture for Clivio Piccioni later in the race didn't help matters for that Hexis Aston Martin. The Nissans were never at their best at the Sachsenring, but Christian Hohenadel and Andrea Piccini took a well-earned victory for Hexis Aston Martin. Last year, Hexis AMR finished runners-up in the team's championship. This year, the small but brilliantly organised French outfit has been incredible in the pits and tough on the track. The first half of the season came to its conclusion at Silverstone last time out. Qualifying race winner Thomas Enger led the field away in his Aston Martin, but never fully escaped the attentions of Michael Krum's Nissan. Further back, Westbrook was attempting to make up places after his car had been shunted in the qualifying race, when contact was made with the Aston of Stefan Mucker. The German was unimpressed, but in attempting to intimidate Westbrook, he got it all wrong and ended up smashing the DBR9 into the barriers and further damaging Richard Westbrook's car. The resultant safety car period also allowed Krum's Nissan to be right on Enger's tail as the stops were made, and the JR Motorsport crew managed to beat young driver in turning the cars around, allowing Lucas Law to take the lead. Now in the Aston, Alex Muller refused to give up the fight, and he threw everything into his attempts. He nosed ahead briefly, but never able to stay in front. So Lucas Law and Michael Krum won the Tourist Trophy. From Silverstone to Spain, and a return visit to the twisting Navarra circuit near Pamplona. Aston Martin driver pairings currently sit 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th in the championship. The Hexis team won at Abu Dhabi with one car and Sachsenring with the other. And while their pit stops are still fantastic, the others are catching up. The young driver team has yet to deliver a win. Enger and Muller came close at Silverstone, but the other car may have a tough weekend due to a 10-place grid penalty following Mucker's accident.
Silverstone for sure was not really a good weekend for us. I did a very big mistake for sure. I just can apologize for that. I had no intention to hit the Nissan on the straight line. It was unfortunately one of these days where just many things come together, but now we are looking forward to the Navarra race, very hot out here, and let's see how we can manage this here.
Corvette's 2 entries offer a contrast in youth versus experience. The DKR engineering car features 2 ambitious Frenchmen, with Michael Rossi having been joined for the 2nd time by Dimitri Engelbert, a GT3 race winner in a Morgan a few years ago. Meanwhile, the ex-Imbank Team China car started from pole last time out and challenged for the win with Luhr and Muller. Nico Verdonk joins Mike Hazelmans this weekend, and for some, Mike is a potential dark horse for the title.
At the moment I'm changing more co-drivers than tires. So of course I cannot do it alone, but the last race was very good. The last 2 races actually pole. The car is getting better, it's really balanced now. But so I don't know, I think the tracks which are coming up are not bad for us.
Ford's GT should feel more at home here in Navarra, where it can use the nimbleness and traction that was so fast at Sachsenring. But both teams need to avoid errors. Belgian Racing have a more consistent lineup now, and Nygaard and Ix were on for a potential 4th place at Silverstone until penalised for an early stop. At Mark VDS, Bas Leinders will hope to build on the 5th place he enjoyed here at Navarra last year, while the other car sees a newcomer in the shape of Indy 500 racer Bertrand Baguette.
Well, it's a completely different world, you know. In IndyCar you see a lot of things. Here in a GT car you have a roof and you have a lot of things around you, so the vision is not so nice, but it's cool. The car walls a lot, it's quick, it's an heavy car, and I like it.
Lamborghini's logo is the Raging Bull, and with the home of the Bull Run, Pamplona, just down the road, it's only right that the Murcielago suits this place so well. Schwager and Pastorelli are in one car, and championship contenders Winkelhock and Basseng are in the other.
I hope so that this track suits to our car. We have to get our own points here this weekend if we still be one of the contenders for the championship.
Nissan's GTR proved to have the necessary speed to win at Silverstone, and the JR Motorsport pairing of Krum and Law is the only outfit to have won on more than one occasion this year. Westbrook and Dumbreck have been out of luck with the last couple of events. At Sumo Power, Enrique Benoldi has his 3rd different co-driver in 4 races in the shape of former Corvette racer Nicky Katzberg.
It's a bit difficult because I'm sitting on the other side of the car and I'm shifting with my left hand. It's been quite good. I just done my first laps in the car. I'm really happy to be in this team with a lot of good drivers, so I just have to listen and learn. I hope we will be in the front this weekend.
The cars are lining up on the grid in preparation for the qualifying race here at Navarra. A very warm welcome, hot welcome indeed, from this northwestern part of Spain. I'm Ben Edwards with John Watson, Hayley Coxon, who will be down on the grid, getting reaction from the drivers as we prepare for the all-important qualifying race, which of course does earn a few points and certainly sets the cars up for the championship race. John, the Navarra circuit demands quite a lot from the tyres, particularly in the temperatures we're seeing.
A shortish circuit, very tight, 15 turns, 800-metre front straight, but it will ultimately be the driver who looks after his rear tyre will be the driver who will stand on the winner's podium.
Let's just run through that grid. The 2 Al Inkel cars in the front row with Marc Basseng starting and Nicky Pastorelli starting in his car. On the 2nd row then you've got Michael Krum in the Nissan and Nico Verdon. He actually starts in 3rd place. 5th is Stef Dusseldorf. 6th is Max Martin, and the 1st of the Ford GTs on the grid. 7th for Andrea Piccini. 8th for Nicky Katzberg, making his debut for Nissan, having been so fast for Corvette. Westbrook is 9th on the grid. Brabham is 10th, both of course in the Nissan GTR. That's Brabham has had a 5-place penalty, that's why he's back there. Henrici and Muller are together on row 6. Then Vanina Ix and Antoine Leclerc, the 2 teammates at Belgian Racing with their Fords. Towards the back, the Corvette of Michael Rossi. There is Stefan Mucker. He starts right at the back, of course. So you'll see the safety car peel off in just a second here as it comes into the pits, and then they have to finish off the last part of the lap. And then, of course, we'll get hopefully the start called. So let's hope they can keep a good formation. Certainly the 2 Lamborghinis just beginning to put a little bit of power down here. And I do hope that they've got a good understanding between each other as to what they're going to do heading down into the first corner.
Key will be who got pickup on their tyres in this formation lap.
Heading down towards the lights then as we prepare for the qualifying race here at Navarra. We go green and the 2 Lamborghinis go into launch mode as they head down towards turn 1. It's a good start on the outside and 4-5 abreast further back in the back, and it looks to me as though it's Nicky Pastorelli who sweeps into the lead from the outside of the front row. The pole sitter Marc Basseng has to settle for 2nd, and already progress from the back and spinner. Belgian Ford in the middle of the pack and just avoided by Stefan Mucker.
I think he might have got clipped on turn 3. 4 cars off track on the exit of turn 3. Please, guys, my wish you didn't respect.
Well, yeah, there could be damage to 1 or 2 of those cars. You're on board with Michael Krum, and he's dropping well back here, John.
Well, he may have been one of those 4 cars that went off on the exit of 3. I suspect he's been clipped, and he may well have a tyre deflation or damage to the rear of the car.
Oh, that's disaster for the championship leader. Not what he wanted at all. Michael Krum dropping right back in the pack there. It's the number 37 car, Nicky Pastorelli, that leads, but the Corvette on a charge, and further back the DKR Corvette, also the black car, trying to make up some places. But up front, near the front, Nico Verdonk in the red Corvette, hounding the Lamborghinis.
Well, he looked like he was coming strongly off turn 8. He was quicker off than the Lamborghinis. At the back of the field, we've got cars. There were 1.4 cars wide coming down the back straight behind the Corvette. It's had a great start, being a major beneficiary with all the messing around in turns 2 and 3.
Let's see what happened at that start.
Well, everybody clean off the grid. Then the cars fan out 3, 4, almost 5 wide, coming down the main straight into turn 1, and this is where it all started to go pear-shaped. We're familiar with that. Into turn 2, there was contact at the tail of the field. There's the Ford going round. I don't know whether Stefan Mucke, he certainly did get clipped, but there was the exit of turn 3 where it really went absolutely pear-shaped. 3, that's the contact with the Ford from the Aston.
So let's ride with the Corvette. Listen to the motor. Doesn't get a lot of chance to stretch its legs though, not on this section.
No, but again, it's a very well balanced car, and he put a sort of young Nico van Dijk into the car. He will push the lower. He looks down the inside, but it was a slight mistake. He almost overran into the corner. The pace of the 2 Lamborghinis in turn 8 coming onto the pit straight, not as quick as the Corvette had the capacity to enter the corner.
And I have wondered if the Lamborghinis would run and hide in this race, John, but it's not happening.
No, they're not. I think they're having to run at a pace. They've got issues they've got to control, temperature being one of those issues, so they can only really allow themselves to run to a certain, let's say, RPM. The higher the RPM they pull, the more heat the engine generates, and they can't dissipate that heat.
Yeah, and this isn't really what they wanted. They would love to have had a little bit of a gap to then look after the cars, but it's not happening for them. They're being hounded by Corvette, by Aston, and by 2 Fords, and one of the Fords up the inside, Max Martin, makes the move on teammate Mark Henrici, and it was well seen by Henrici, who gave him just enough space. He's trying to come back at him, and Max Martin says, right, I'm going to go to the inside if you're going to try that one.
Well, the compromise was Martin compromised his exit, so he didn't have the speed off, so Henrici looking to come back, and the Belgian driver now just ahead of his teammate.
On board with Max Martin, the number 41 Ford, and he's really beginning to hound Steph Dusseldorf in the Aston Martin ahead of him. Oh, and another possible change up front between the 2 leaders. Oh my goodness, the 2 teammates. This is getting very tight indeed. Basseng wants to get through, but Nicky Pastorelli's not going to make it easy for him. Interesting discussion between the drivers of those 2 Lamborghinis, the teammates. Oh, and this is a move by Max Martin up the inside of the Aston. Nearly gets there. Good racing, well done. They gave each other just enough space, but he didn't get through.
No, he tried on the inside, but he's going to try again into turn 10. Can he get it done? Gets up the inside. Yes, he's got it done this time. And that's what I want to see. Close motor racing, but I don't want to see dodging cars.
Watch Max Martin here, because, you know, he's been able to get past the Aston. He got past his teammate earlier on, and now he is hounding. Yeah, look at the lap times, how he is caught up. He is hounding the back of the Corvette. So suddenly, from being attacker, Nico Verdonk has now turned into defender, and that Ford is getting even closer.
Chance will come up into turn 8. Again, Verdonk is very canny about how he uses his car, where he puts it. No chance in this particular occasion. Maxime Martin feeling that the Corvette is too competitive. But again, you can see just the way the Corvette can marginally pull away. So frustrating for Maxime Martin. But down the inside.
He's down the inside. As we said, he's done it. What a lovely bit of outbraking that was.
But the Corvette's come back. He overran the corner. But can he maintain? But no, he can't.
Oh, I wondered if he was going to hold that and then have the inside line here, which is what he did earlier. But that's great racing between these 2. And again, they're giving each other just enough room. Quality stuff as the 2 leaders continue around to pull away from these 2. Great on-board shots these, because you're making the thought processes with the driver. He knows he's got the advantage, but he also knows to make a good move, it's got to be without hesitation, and it's got to be focused and committed, and he just knows as yet he hasn't quite got into the position to be able to do that.
Up the inside, up the inside, got it done. Can he keep it in control? He's got it. Great opportunistic pass, unexpected, but the Corvette's round the outside.
But he's got the inside for the next right-hander. He's there on the inside. Surely the Corvette can't come back from there. But then the Corvette's great off the corner. He's trying to get across, and he just does it. That's his move. The Corvette's going to have to go to the outside. No room. And finally, Max Martin has completed the manoeuvre.
Well, caught everybody unexpectedly into turn 6. The danger was he overran the corner, and the Corvette swapped back underneath the Ford, got alongside. Unfortunately, he was on the outside for the 2 right-hand corners, and Martin was able to control that position.
2 Nissans going side by side as they come down. That's the 2 Sumo Power cars. Still the same. Katzberg in front of Brabham, but Brabham trying to get him as they come around. And now Max Martin. Oh no, it's Henrici trying to get past the Corvette as well. Henrici trying, as you say, repeat what Max Martin did earlier.
But watch the Aston behind, because it's suddenly come back up into this battle for Steph Dusseldorf, who really had dropped back and hadn't been a player. Now he's suddenly feeling, well, I want a bit more action. I had my quiet Saturday afternoon drive. I want to go motor racing. Second place, passing first of the lead cars to make a pit stop. Yep. We've seen Ickx come in and we've seen Leclerc come in. But the focus at the front now, and we also see the Corvette comes into the pits. So, Corvette, Ford GT and Aston Martin.
Now that's Basseng out and Winkelhock in, isn't it? That's the 38 car. So they were in second place. We'll also see how the pit stops compare as everybody rushes around to change all 4 tyres. We know these guys are fast at Hexis, the number 3 car in then, and what can they do to turn it around? Dusseldorf handing over to Clivio Piccioni. Now there goes the number 38 Lamborghini, so there wasn't anyone particularly close. Remember, he was being caught a bit by the Ford, but the Ford has stayed out there. The Corvette now gets running.
And the thing is, can the Corvette get out before the Aston rejoins? No, side by side again. Another incident, well, not yet, but side by side, Aston Martin, Corvette. Who's going to get into a narrowing gap? The Corvette was marginally ahead in the pit lane. The Aston had to concede, but really in this first turn, then up into turn 2 and 3, be prepared for an Aston banzai attack to try and get past the Corvette at the earliest possible opportunity.
He's done it. He's down the inside, but he's running wide on the exit. Piccioni has got past. Can he hold it? I think he might be able to.
He had to do that because Mike Hazelmans, if he'd been able to get a half a lap, he would have then found the Aston pushing but really struggling. There's the lead car in now.
The lead car in. So which of the Lamborghinis will be leading after this pit stop? That's going to be really interesting. And remember, Max Martin has stayed out there for the moment in his very fast Ford. He's still lapping a second a lap more than anybody else. And I tell you what, that Ford GT is really going to put itself in amongst the Lamborghinis when it comes to the pit stop, as long as they get a quick pit stop, and then it'll be down to new boy Bertrand Baguette. But in the meantime, the Corvette's come back. Hazelmans gets back down the inside. Lovely stuff from the veteran Corvette racer. He knew exactly how to judge the braking, and he's got in front of Piccioni.
Yeah, good pass down the inside into turn 9, puts himself ahead, lost the opportunity in the opening sequence when they went into turn 2 and 3. Piccioni very cleverly put the Aston down the inside, but Mike Hazelmans has come back. So the Corvette is ahead once again.
But which Lamborghini will be ahead? Because 37 is down the pit road. Number 38 is coming down, start-finish straight. Pit speed limit, of course, applying to the number 37 car until it's released. And here to change, it is the number 38 car. The early stop has certainly helped Marcus Winkelhock, who now takes the lead of the race in the car he shares with Marc Basseng. Look at this lot, heading down, and there are cars joining from the pits as well. This is all going to be very interesting. The other Hexis cars got in front of the Corvette, and joining in the fun and games there, the Nissan as well. So it's tight as Piccioni hits the back of the Corvette, gives him a big old thump, and trying to go through there. Jamie Campbell-Walters gained a place.
Yeah, easy move for Campbell-Walter. He just has to sit and watch. The contact came, the Aston was compromised. Smoke from the back of the Corvette. That is damage to the rear bodywork, which in turn, look at the rear smoke.
It looks like an oil leak, doesn't it?
Well, it might be an oil leak. I don't know whether there's an oil radiator at the back of the car, a transmission cooler. But let's have a look and see. Oh yeah, he gives him a right old nerf. Certainly get 4 points on your licence for that one if you're driving in the public roads.
And Jamie Campbell-Walters just sort of nips down the inside.
And he damaged the rear bodywork. I don't know whether that's the bodywork rubbing on the tyre or whether there might well be a cooler somewhere in that region. I think it's more bodywork than anything else.
Max Martin is still leading this race. He still hasn't made a pit stop. So we're still waiting for the Ford GT of Max Martin to come into the pits, and there he is. We're waiting to see how long he stays out there.
The danger is he's not the quickest car on the racetrack. That happens to be the Winkelhock Lamborghini, which has got fresh rubber, so they will be bringing this car in now. There is Bertrand Baguette. He will be into the car driven by Marc Martin, but Martin has done such good work in the laps that he stayed out on. He's been able to run a second a lap quicker than the rest of the field, so he may well put himself into even closer contention to the two Lamborghinis. Remember, he ran them down prior to this round of pit stops.
Yeah, no, it could be a threat. but as you say, I think it's time they came in. I'm not sure he shouldn't have come in on this last lap.
Well, the last lap, the Lamborghini had a quicker lap, so he's in now. I mean, we saw Baguette ready to jump into the car. Whether they should have come in a lap earlier or come in on this lap is a moot point. We'll see just how quickly this pit stop takes place and where the Ford GT rejoins, whether it's between the two Lamborghinis or whether has Martin done enough in the intervening period to get ahead of the lead Lamborghini. And well, we'll have to just wait and see how quick this pit stop goes.
What a great moment for Bertrand Baguette, who's making his race debut in GT1 World Championship. Indy 500 racer. He contested many of the IRL races last year. Oh, get the door shut, get him. Oh no, we've got a delay. Oh, the door won't shut. Would you believe it?
We've had a problem with the door on the Ford GTs in the past. That's cost 5 seconds.
Oh.
There the two Lamborghinis are now on the pit straight. Had that not happened, clearly that Ford would have been between these two Lamborghinis, but now he's going to have to do all the work that Maxime Martin did, and in fact he's in danger of losing potentially third place as the Aston comes up, the Hexus Aston, and it sweeps past the Ford GT into turn one, and what a disaster for the Mark BDS 14. Oh, problem for the Corvette, and rear tire finally. Well, we know a body contact, and the bodywork has rubbed through the tyre more than the tyre rubbing the bodywork away, so Mike Hazeman's creeping back. He's at turn, I think that's turn 10. So he's pretty much round the lap, but still 2 more corners to go before he can even see the side of the pit lane.
Just news also, John, that there's a drive-through penalty for car 3. That was the Hexus Aston Martin of Piccioni for colliding into the back of Mike Hazeman's Corvette.
Yes, that was it. That was an avoidable incident, and we're seeing now the stewarding at every FIA event being much more aware of incidents that occur that disadvantage a driver. Mike Hazeman's, we don't know where he is, but he's in the pits at the minute, so whether he leaves the pits we don't know, but his race was spoiled by that contact, and therefore why should the driver responsible for the contact not receive some punishment himself?
Hazeman's climbed us out of his Corvette. That's so disappointing because that car was a real front runner in there. Nico Verdonk drove a good first stint. He was fighting hard and it was looking good and clean until it just went wrong down into turn 2 and 3, and the drivers just having a discussion about it, but that's a great pity.
As we see the Aston come in for a drive-through penalty.
So it's going to feel like an age here for Clivio Piccioni to head his way down the pit lane, and as he does so, everyone else is overtaking him out on the circuit. There go Turner and Dumbreck. Oh, a little move up the inside there, and that's Enrique Bernoldi gaining a place, getting past Bas Linders. Oh no, is he? Because Bas Linders retakes him back again.
Well, the problem going down the inside into turn 8 is that you commit yourself down the inside. You then have got a very acute angle, and if you can't make it, you overrun the corner, and the car that you've passed has got an open bit of racetrack on the racing line, and it's just a simple matter of just occupying that bit of racetrack and retaking the position.
Now, what's this coming into the pits? The number 7 Aston Martin. I wonder why that's happened. It's Thomas Enger, and must be some sort of problem because you wouldn't expect a pit stop at this stage in the race. Can't see any visible damage, but something has clearly gone awry for the number 7 Aston. Here comes Bertrand Baguette then. This is for third place. Remember, you're looking back from the Hexus Aston Martin as Christian Hohenadel, race winner from the Saxon Ring. Very impressive drive that day from Hohenadel, who has adapted to these GT1 cars very effectively. Told us it took him a while, and here comes Baguette. Yeah, a lot of pressure on Baguette here. First time he's ever driven one of these cars, and he's got a potential podium finish. You're looking back from the Aston at him, and Baguette so far, I'm impressed. He hasn't done anything, you know, sort of wayward. Still got a bit of time to go.
The big difficulty is that the Lamborghinis are 18 seconds down the road from the third place Aston Martin. Now, when we saw Maxime Martin in the Ford GT, he managed to get through. Now he's dived up the inside.
He's had a look.
Into turn 13.
He's
turn 15.
Into turn 15, the last corner. That was a late lunge up the inside, but Bertrand Baguette, well, I said he's sort of waiting for his moment, but he chose it, and that's always the best way. Just go for it as soon as you're in range, and he's done it, but the Aston trying to come back at him, but he can't do that through the kink.
No, that was a courageous, again, an unexpected move from Bertrand Baguette, typical of a single-seater racing driver, opportunistic, sees the gap, tries to make it work, and there's a big problem for Nissan. Is that a fire extinguisher, I think, has gone off in the car.
That's Bernoldi out of the car. That's a great shame for Enrique Bernoldi. Just gone past Linders, if you remember, so whatever's gone wrong there, that Nissan is out. He just pulls off to the side of the track.
Well, there's a rumble of some description, and whether that's... He leaps out of the car, and is that smoke or something spilling in the car, whether it's oil that's smoking or whether there's no flame that we can see.
Look at Dumbreck's got as close as ever to the back of Darren Turner's Aston Martin, but I'm not sure there's anything he can do with it.
Well, the thunder of the Nissan going down the pit straight as opposed to the scream of the V12 Aston Martin. Peter Dumbreck hoping that he can force Darren Turner to make a little error coming through turn 2, but Darren just slows it down, makes sure his car's in the part of the racetrack. That's going to be the important part. And then Peter Dumbreck knows he's always going to have to wait until the Aston starts to accelerate before he can then get on the throttle as well.
Let's get down to hear what happened to Enrique Bernoldi now.
Enrique, what was happening out there for you?
Well, the temperature is very, very hot outside, so I started to feel some smoke on the car, and then I had some flames, maybe some electrical part just burned, and as the fire was starting to go more while I was driving, I had to stop close to a fire marshal, so it's a shame.
Thank you.
So the number 41 Ford there, Bertrand Baguette, holding on to third place, and it's a fairly lonely third place because he's eased away from the others. Darren Turner still managing to fend off the Nissan of Peter Dumbreck. That's the race that's going on currently for 6th place, but the Corvette joining in the fun and games. This has been cat and mouse, as you said earlier on, John. There's Jamie Campbell-Walter, and he has got ahead of Hohenadel, so that was a place gained by Jamie Campbell-Walter. He's been looking at doing that for a couple of laps. Let's see how he did it here.
Again, it's down into turn 8. That's at the end of the back straight, and again, Hohenadel saw him coming, gave him room, hoped that he might make the cut back, but couldn't do it. It's a good, clean pass from Jamie Campbell-Walter down the inside, just gets the car. Again, the Aston saw the Nissan coming, pulled away from the corner.
So it's all looking good for an Alinkle.com 1-2 in the qualifying race. In theory, that would give them the front row lockout again tomorrow, but it won't, because the number 37 car will suffer a 5-place penalty on the grid for an extra engine use this season in the championship. But nonetheless, this has been a tremendous display by both sets of drivers in a car that clearly works well here.
Indeed, and what's going to be very exciting is the prospect of Maxime Martin being on the front row alongside the lead car here, and we know how quickly that car goes.
So the race victory in the qualifying event here at Navarra goes to Markus Winkelhock with Marc Basseng in their Alinkel Lamborghini. 2nd place to their teammates Dominic Schweger and Nicky Pastorelli. An absolutely superb display by the team, and Marc Basseng congratulating each and every member of that team. But scoring a podium finish on his debut in the GT1 World Championship is young Frenchman Bertrand Baguette, fresh out of single-seaters into a Mark VDS Ford GT. There's his teammate who drove such a great stint earlier on. He finishes in 3rd. 4th goes to Jamie Campbell-Walter, sharing with David Brabham. 5th to the Hexus Aston of Hohenadel and Piccini. So the guys just assembling. We'll hear from our podium finishers. Let's hear from the winners first of all, Markus Winkelhock and Marc Basseng.
Congratulations, what a result for you, Mark.
Yeah, it's an incredible team effort from us. If you saw what we had last year and what we have this year, 1 and 2 in a qualifying race, amazing. The gap was great, huge, and so I'm really surprised. I'm really happy for the team, for all the work we did. Marcus did a phenomenal job, pit stop was good, I'm happy.
Marcus, a great bit of racing with your teammate there.
Yeah, it was just a great race. He did a good job in the beginning, me at the end, and yeah, as you said, it's a really good result, I think, for the whole team. P1 and 2, I think with that we can be really happy. And yeah, now I'm looking forward for tomorrow. The car was fantastic, the whole race actually, and yeah, looking forward for tomorrow.
Thank you.
So the Lamborghini's taking a 1-2 finish here at Navarra, with the Alinkel cars dominating of Winkelhock and Basseng ahead of Schweger and Pastorelli. But the Martech Ford, or the Martech powered Ford, the Mark VDS car of Baguette and Martin, a fine 3rd. Jamie Campbell-Walter and David Brabham, top Nissan in this one, in 4th, ahead of the Aston Martin of Christian Hohenadel and Andrea Piccini, and then the young driver car of Darren Turner and Stefan Mucker. The Nissan next up of Richard Westbrook and Peter Dumbreck, they finished 7th. 8th place the Corvette, good result for Engelbert and Michael Rossi. 9th place for the Nissan of Michael Krum and Lucas Law, who had a pretty tough afternoon, to be honest. Then the Aston of Piccioni and Dusseldorf. They had a drive-through penalty, remember. Nygaard and Iggs finished in 11th place, and 12th place went to Bas Linders, despite not finishing. They actually were 5 laps down at the end because the car was pulled off to the side of the track. Quite a few non-finishers. Bernoldi and Katzberg in their Nissan. Enger and Muller failed to finish in the Aston Martin. The Corvette, which got damaged, of Hazemans and Verdonk. And Claret and Leclerc also failed to finish. That was then. This is now. We are getting ready for the championship race here at Navarra, as we are looking at the maximum point score on offer. Of course, the qualifying race went the way of Lamborghini, but will it be a different story today? Well, the weather conditions we thought might be different. We certainly started off with different weather this morning. We had overnight rain. A damp circuit greeted the competitors, John, when they went out for the morning half-hour warm-up. But the sun has come out and it's absolutely gorgeous once again.
Well, as they say, the rains in Spain fall mainly on the plains, and it did overnight, and this morning we had a damp track, but now it is glorious, not quite as warm as we saw on Saturday for the qualifying race. Nevertheless, it is heating up.
So this track, 2.4 miles long, 3.9 kilometres, and tricky to overtake, but it is possible. We saw a few manoeuvres, particularly if you've got a fresher set of tyres after the pit stops.
Yes, and down into turn 8 was one of the favourite places, and into turn 9 at the end of the back straight. There you get an idea of the elevation. It's subtle, but it is there. The long 800-metre uphill pit straight, flat out through turn 1, and then hard on the brakes to get into the second gear, turn 2 and turn 3. So
track temperature 45 degrees, air temperature 31.9. Lovely to see a much bigger crowd this year. It's certainly the Navarra circuit getting known about, and there's a lot of people there trying to find some shade if they're not in the grandstand. There's a great view of this wine country that we're in here, John, as you know only too well.
Well, it's a bit like Carmel and California. I mean, it's so reminiscent of bits of California. The plains, literally, I mean, you can see them, they're sun-bleached. The grass is now total blonde, and they got those very rugged mountains and gorges behind the plains. I mean, it is a truly stunning part of Spain. I must say, I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, and some great spectating opportunities too with the topography of the circuit. Not a lot of ups and downs in the track itself, but there are for the spectators who are watching on the sidelines.
Yes, it's almost like an amphitheatre for the spectators, and right in the middle of the circuit there's a big rib of land, and you can stand on that or sit on that as you choose and see pretty much in that particular viewing spot 90% of the circuit.
So looking down onto the grid with the flags and the cars hidden by the number of people that have assembled on the grid here today. But it is the Lamborghini that won yesterday, of course, that starts from pole position. It'll be Marcus Winkelhock to start from pole, but it'll be Bertrand Baguette, the Belgian racer, young Belgian who's so impressive yesterday. We're going to go and hear from him, ex-Indy 500 racer. Let's see what he has to say.
Bertrand, you've made quite an impact on the team so far this weekend.
Yeah, it's going well. We are starting P2 for the championship race, so it's a very good position for us. If we avoid the crash at turn 1, well, turn 3 should be okay. We just have a big issue with the engine, so we are not sure the engine will make it to the end. So we finger crossed and we will see.
Thank you.
Well, that's news from the pits, or from the grid already, that they've got an issue with the engine. That's a bit of a worry.
Yeah, disappointment, but it is said that Bertrand Baguette this morning turned up at the circuit on a bicycle with a cane basket with a fresh delivery of... No, I can't say it, can I?
It's a great name, isn't it? But Bertrand Baguette hopefully is going to become one of the new stars of GT racing. It's an all-Belgian lineup there at that team now with Max Martin, and they were amongst the most impressive yesterday. But as I say, they've got the Lamborghini to beat. The other Lamborghini that finished second, because it got a penalty for an extra engine change, it actually now starts on the fourth row of the grid. So that'll mean a bit of work to do for Dominic Schwager and Nicky Pastorelli. But this Ford GT, well, it's a mid-engine machine, so it suits the twists and turns of the Navarra circuit. The engine just in front of the rear wheels means that they have plenty of traction. Not as powerful, though, John, as some of the other entries in GT1.
No, and that's been an issue that they've complained about. They want more horsepower. We've got the handling, we've got the perfect racing car layout. Just give us a little bit more horsepower so as we can challenge on power and let us use our handling to maybe our advantage.
So that's the Ford, but there is the Lamborghini that actually is on pole position. Marcus Winkelhock and Marc Basseng. Now remember, before we started this weekend, look at the points have been revised slightly. They were actually sitting just behind the Nissan after the last race at Silverstone, but they are major championship contenders. They were winners at Zolder. They won the qualifying race and they went on to win the championship race. And this Lamborghini, as last year, and in different colours, it was the Reiter car last year, loves this Navarra circuit. It seems to suit it so well.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a mid-engine car, but in fact, the gearbox is ahead of the engine in the Lamborghini. But nevertheless, weight distribution, the ability to get the power to the ground and traction is a major feature of this 15-turn Navarra circuit, particularly when you exit out of turn 9 up to the very tight 11, 12 and 13. So looking after your rear tyres will be key.
So it is the other Lamborghini that starts back on the 4th row. Let's hear from Nicky Pastorelli.
You are 5 places back from where you should be on the grid. Can you explain the reason why?
Yeah, that was because we changed our 3rd engine after Silverstone because of the engine failure. That gives us this penalty. But of course, it's not the best place to start a race. But yesterday we showed that the speed was good. So I don't see any big problems to make up some places during the race.
So Nicky Pastorelli, let's see what they can do from that slightly further back position, but we know the Lamborghini's fast. Stefan Rattel, the boss of FIA GT1 World Championship, and second visit, John, to this Navarra circuit. Of course, the championship came here last year when the track was pretty much brand new, so it's nice to see a sort of return visit, and the teams have got a little bit of data to go on.
Yes, this is one of a number of new tracks that are being constructed throughout Spain, and it's very impressive, the facility overall. And it isn't just a racetrack, it's actually a corporate hospitality centre. They've got karting and other things, but really the key to this circuit, there's a magnificent vineyard and literally on the steps of the circuit, so quite a contrast. So bring your guests to the circuit, let them have a lovely day, and then you can entertain them either at the vineyard or bring the product over to the circuit.
Well, indeed, you had a little trip to the vineyard, and fans can follow that on the website gt1world.com. Go to GT1 TV and you'll see about John's little trip to the vineyard. Looking at the Nissan of Jamie Campbell-Walter and David Brabham. Now, that was the top finishing Nissan, and with the various penalties that have been applied, it means they've got a 2nd row starting position. They're actually starting 3rd on the grid, so good opportunity there. Jamie Campbell-Walter went well here last year at Navarra when he was teamed up with Warren Hughes. Warren Hughes not racing here this weekend, just to remind you. He was a part of the Nissan lineup, of course, for a couple of events, but Nicky Katzberg has taken his place at Nissan for this weekend alongside Enrique Bernaldi. This black Corvette went really well yesterday, but there is the Richard Westbrook, Peter Dunbreck Nissan. Peter will be starting this car, and well, they were a little bit disappointed with the way things worked out. I did see Richard briefly, and he said that black Corvette, he was trying to get past it for a while, but actually had good pace, and they were closing on the group ahead, but they lost some time in the pit stops.
Well, particularly Michael Rossi, but also Angel Baer did a very, very good job. They gained massively on the opening lap when they went from 15th through to 8th place, and by getting that position so early into the lap, they were able to consolidate, but also to challenge.
Now, this car was leading the championship coming into this event, of course, having won the Tourist Trophy at Silverstone, but they got a knock at this first corner, indeed, by Max Martin in his Ford, and it flattened part of the exhaust, and it had no power for a while until the pressure build-up sort of blew that part of the exhaust off, and then they were back up to speed, but of course they'd lost so many places by then.
Yeah, I mean, total frustration for Michael Kroom and Lucas Luhr, who did a totally brilliant job at Silverstone in the championship race, and a great pass and race with Alex Muller and the Aston Martin, the young driver Aston Martin, and of course came here with high expectations. Sadly, they weren't delivered.
Number 9 is Christopher Nygaard, the car he shares with Vanina Ix. They had a little problem as well during the race yesterday. They had to make an extra pit stop, and then she managed to go over the white line on pit exit, so they ended up with a drive-through penalty as well. So it wasn't a particularly strong day, but nonetheless they sort of came back quite well, and they're starting on the 5th row alongside Clivia Piccioni, who likewise had a drive-through penalty, but that was because he ran into the back of Mike Hazelman.
Yes, he did. He did a lot of damage to the back of the Corvette. It ended up coming into the pits with a deflated rear tyre and maybe further damage that we weren't aware of. Disappointment for the Corvette, because again, a front-running car to be taken out like that rather needlessly by Clivio Piccioni. Well, disappointment indeed.
Now, Darren Turner and Stefan Mucker's car is further down on the grid than where it finished yesterday, because they've got a 5-place penalty. This goes back to Zolder, John, because Stefan Mucker got a suspended sentence, if you like, for an incident at the start of the qualifying race at Zolder. They didn't apply the 5-race penalty, but because of what happened at Silverstone, it's sort of like, they've already given him a penalty yesterday for what happened at Silverstone, but it then brought in the suspended sentence as well.
And he's still got to face the licensing authorities in his home country, Germany, for the offence that was carried out at Silverstone. So it's not getting better at the moment for Stefan Mucker. He needs to keep everything here today as clean as possible, not to heap more coals in the fire.
Yes, and if you did miss what happened at Silverstone, once again, go to GT1 TV and you'll be able to catch up with all the highlights. It was a fairly bizarre accident that he had with Richard Westbrook. Now, the grid has been cleared. Lights on the pole-sitting car there. Shouldn't be any worries about getting a clean start today. We had a GT3 race this morning that was started behind safety car due to the damp conditions, but we've got absolutely glorious weather now this afternoon in preparation for the big point-scoring race. 25 points on offer to the race winner, 18 points on for second place. And as the cars move away, the temperatures are pretty high. We saw, problem there for the Aston Martin, not moving off the grid at all. That was Christian Hohenadel, and a bit slow away is the Corvette as well, of Dimitri Engelbert. I think they're all okay.
Yeah, I think they're all pretty much back into their respective places as they file around up through turn one. Just about flat out in a GT1 car, not flat out in a road-going Nissan GTR, but still mighty quick up the hill. And these cars probably doing about 250 kilometers per hour as they turn right and then have to get on the brakes for turn 2 and then the tighter turn 3.
So we are looking down the grid at the moment. Ones to watch out for, particularly that Schwager Pastorelli Lamborghini coming from the 4th row, because it's a fast car, but it picked up a penalty, so it's not representative of its speed. Also watch out for that car of Darren Turner and Stefan Mucker. That's potentially fast. Overtaking is tricky here. Mike Hazemans as well. The Corvette in the hands of both he and Nico Verdonk was flying yesterday. Bas Linders right at the back because they've had another engine change. They've been through a number of... They had a really bad start to the season with engines, and it meant that they changed about 2 or 3 in Abu Dhabi, wasn't it? And so they've ended up with more engines than the championship allows, and if you use more engines, then of course you get grid penalties. So already all eyes are on the of this start of the race. The president of the Navarra region just getting a glimpse of these GT1 cars as they get ready to start this race. And the region certainly appealing to motorsport fans with this new facility. It's really the only circuit in this part of Spain.
In fact, the circuit took an advertisement in one of the leading Formula One magazines in Great Britain this month, a full-page advertisement to show the facility, showcase what is available at Navarra. And what I'm delighted about is the response from the residents in the region who have come here to watch these races. GT3 this morning, GT1 this afternoon, on a truly lovely afternoon in Spain.
And next week, actually, this coming week, the famous Fiesta of Pamplona begins. The bull run season is upon us, almost just a few days away.
Remember, the Lamborghini is the prancing bull.
Exactly. So it's a Lamborghini win yesterday. Can they do the double here in bull country? The Lamborghini's also won GT3 yesterday, but not today. So I wonder if that's a little indicator. Wait and see. We've got a 1-hour race coming up, and it promises to be full of action. If anything we've seen so far can guide us accurately, it is Marcus Winkelhock, who took his first ever pole position in qualifying, who leads them round, and this time he gets to start the car because Marc Basseng, of course, will take it over later in the race. And the car's already just beginning to get themselves into position now as we prepare for the start. You'll see the pace car peel off in just a second. That's the pit lane entry that you can see in the foreground there, and I think you'll see him peel off any second. We're still waiting to see that. Maybe a little bit later. Yeah, he's cut across quite late this time, later than he did yesterday. Cars coming up through the last couple of turns. They've got the hairpin right-hander to bring them around onto start-finish straight. Here we go then, all set for the start of the championship race here in Navarra. It's going to be Lamborghini versus Ford as they head down to see the lights change. The race gets underway, and also the Nissan in the of Jamie Campbell-Walter having a good old go at trying to get past the Lamborghini. But up front is Marcus Winkelhock, and the Ford has been passed by both the Nissan and I think by the Aston Martin, actually side by side. No, it's the other Nissan of Peter Dumbrek going up the inside. Dumbrek's had a fantastic getaway.
And Bertrand Baguette really getting squeezed out. Contact on the exit of 3 of the Ford has gone, a Nissan and an Aston Martin.
Oh, that's was that the
that was the Müller-Engel car, I think.
Yeah, we need to check that and see which car that
Engel was at the back. It was Thomas Engel and Bemi Bernoldi.
There is the number 3 Hexis Aston Martin. That was obviously involved as well. That's Clivio Piccioni's car. There is, Lucas Luhr and Michael Krum's car. I think that was involved too, was it? So we'll have to check that as they come around. I think it was the Nissan of Krum and Luhr also involved.
Engel's okay, so is the Mucker car.
Yeah, up front it is Marcus Winkelhock who leads. It is Jamie Campbell-Walter who's got himself up into second place. Oh, big slide, snaky under-braking there from Nicky Katzberg, I think, in the number 20 car. Enrique Bernoldi it is in the car at the moment. Oh, and a slide out wide, and that gives the Corvette a chance. You're on board with Mike Hazemans here in the Corvette, coming from towards the back, remember, after that incident in yesterday's race. So he's trying to make most of this early lap.
Well, you have got to catch your breath. All the incidents occurred up in turn 3, which is normally, we've seen this weekend 3 races we've had incident up there in the opening lap, and this race, the 4th is no different.
And look at the Lamborghini number 37. We know how fast that car is. Dominic Schwager now trying to close up onto the back of Dimitri Engelbert in the Corvette. Corvette flashing its lights busily there as they come across the line. Dumbrek is the car ahead as they now head through turn 1 and look side by side. The Lamborghini trying to go around the outside at the kink. My goodness, that's a brave attempt. Has he pulled it off? Not quite.
So the Lamborghini in the front row of the grid has found itself going backwards even more.
Oh dear, not what he wanted at all. Winkelhock leads this race. Campbell Walter in second, Dumbrek in third, Engelbert is in fourth place. Then it's Dominic Schwager still trying to get past to the Corvette. Further back, there's the number 7 Aston of Thomas Enger. That is okay, it's in 9th position. And here you can see Enrique Bernaldi with Mike Hazemans. Those guys are running down in 12th and 13th. In the pits is Jan Claret in the Belgian Racing Ford. He got involved in something at that first corner. The other Belgian car still in the race, in the hands at the moment of Christopher Nygaard. Actually up into 8th place, Michael Krum trying to see what's happened to his car.
Well, it's down in 14th place. If Michael doesn't know it already, that's where Lucas Luhr is. So the Ford GT makes its way back out. It got clipped on the left, right rear corner in turn 3. Aston dives down. Thomas Enger gets past the Belgian Ford GT. The other Aston of Darren Turner looking to find a way on the inside into turn 12, but there's not much room. He's going to have to be patient and wait and try and get a run up out of 15 into turn 1.
Being chased as well by Bas Leinders in the silver and burgundy and yellow Ford. Still the Corvette holding on to an excellent 4th place at the moment of Dimitri Engelbert. Only came into GT1 the last event at Silverstone, but he's driving beautifully here at the moment. A race winner in GT3 some years ago in a Morgan of all things, but it's good to see him racing this Corvette hard. There he is, but that car behind him, the Alinkel Lamborghini, is fast, John.
The car is fast, but it's fast really on its own when he hasn't got traffic. He's getting held back. He knows his car is quicker than the Corvette, but it's this usual problem. How do you find space? Tries to have a look down the inside going into the flat-out left-hand turn 4, not in a position to do anything about it. The Lamborghini can work the Corvette through this next sequence of corners. His best chance would be trying to do something through or into turn 8, but not close enough at this point on the lap.
Interesting that Lucas Luhr, whose car got involved and hit in that first corner, second corner, we may be able to see a bit more now what happened to Lucas Luhr, because we're looking at a replay of the start. All charging down through turn 1. The kink was okay, but then it was what's happening in turns 2 and 3 that we want to really keep an eye on here, John.
Well, he was starting on the 4th row of the grid and it got very congested around that part of the grid, looking backwards from the Corvette as the field streams up. And look at the speed of the cars coming up on the right-hand side.
Yeah, that's right. Now he's over it. You can just about see him in that shot, I think, as we look back from one of the other cars, the Corvette.
Well, that's the Corvette there, back from the, it must be one of the...
Now, can we see anything happening behind
Look
us?
at that Ford on the outside. It gets, it's behind the incident. There were those two Fords were in line astern pretty much in turn 3.
Now I think he got caught up behind an Aston and somebody tried to dive up the inside. Yeah, I think Enger did go up the inside of him. That sort of squeezed him wide, didn't it?
Yeah, well, that's just spun him around literally, and then the Aston had to wait until the Nissan cleared way.
Yeah, that was Piccioni who got stuck behind him in the other
The Corvette, just looking at the Corvette coming onto the main straight, suddenly seemed to lose all momentum. As once again,
you're right. Hazemans is slowing down past our commentary position, and the other Corvette's about to be passed by the Lambo. There goes Dominic Schwager, rather. Dominic's got him.
Yeah, just forced the issue, put pressure on Engelbert, and just he decided, you know, I can't deal with the pace of that Lamborghini behind me. Nicky Pastorelli sitting watching the progress of his teammate Dominic Schwager.
So Schwager has made that move. He's got himself into 4th place. So the Lamborghini, as we expected, is showing great potential here, but as you say, Mike Hazemans came past us slowly just now, and I think they're in trouble. Jamie Campbell-Walters just set fastest lap. He's running in 2nd behind the lead Lamborghini, remember, of Marcus Winkelhock. So good effort up from Jamie Campbell-Walter in these. There are the leaders. Winkelhock, Jamie's just set fastest lap.
And part of the reason is, and the same applies to Dumbrek, is they are running at the front. They're not having to deal. There is the Corvette making its way slowly back to the pits. But the two Nissans, Campbell-Walter and Dumbrek, are at the front. They're able to run at their natural pace and not having to really worry too much, but making their way up through the field as they did do yesterday.
Well, he's giving us a much slower ride on that onboard camera now, sadly, in the Corvette, and it looks as though Hazemans is headed for retirement. We'll have to wait and see if he gets the car back out again. do know that the black Corvette has a fresh set of tyres to use after its pit stop. Some of the teams may have got some new tyres left, but others will have to use tyres that were run in qualifying, and that can make quite a difference.
Well, we're seeing Engelbert doing a very good job on the Corvette. Expect Michael Rossi, when he gets in, to do an even better job. And there is the Corvette. It's went out of turn 15 one lap ago. It's a long, long way to get round at the speed he's doing.
Looks like team boss there trying to explain to Nico Verdonk. Looks like it might have been a drive shaft failure, the way that it's coming back so slowly. I wonder if that's what it is. Anyway, there is the Stefan Mucker, Darren Turner car. Darren in the car at the moment, still trying to get past Christopher Nygaard in the Belgian Racing Ford GT. So Darren's still down in 10th place. Fighting to get past. Thomas Enger, meanwhile, is in 8th position behind Bertrand Baguette. Now, we haven't really mentioned Bertrand Baguette, John, but he was on the front row of the grid and really did not get away at all well, which is odd because he's used to rolling starts from his racing in IRL.
Yeah, but he got somewhat swamped by the group of cars on the second and third rows, and coming into turn one, found himself on the outside of the corner, which is not the place to be. Now, sometimes it can work for you, but clearly on this occasion in GT1 cars it didn't. He's
in the background with his lights on, just moving over to the middle of the track and back over. He's dropped all the way down to 7th place in the Ford GT. Having said that, remember, he told us on the grid a potential engine problem. I wonder perhaps the engine didn't pull as cleanly as he'd hoped.
They may also have slightly set the engine, detuned the engine. Basically, there is the Corvette finally getting round almost to the pit lane entrance. Now drives in, has to avoid the cones, which actually are marking the demarcation entry to the pit lane until 6 times. Well, in fact, he's actually done a short
pit lane entry, yeah.
There's another 2 pit lanes we've got here at Navarra, so he makes his way in at the earliest opportunity to get out of the way of these cars. We're racing.
Yeah, so a great shame for Hazeman. They promised a lot this weekend, but it certainly hasn't delivered for him. Race leader Marcus Winkelhock crosses the line. The gap only 1.1 seconds back to Jamie Campbell-Walter. Then Peter Dumbreck under pressure from the little low, lithe Lamborghini. The contrast couldn't be much greater, could it, between the big front-engine Nissan, the tallest car on the grid, and the low-slung Lamborghini that laps up this Navarra circuit as we see Hazeman's in the pit lane.
And you can see the Lamborghinis progress half a second one lap. 50, literally it's taken just over half a second out in 3 laps. Now he's under the rear wing of the Nissan. For sure he'll be getting a good 2, but remember from yesterday we know that the Lamborghinis again are a car that is very temperature sensitive. They're running just on the limit, so Dominic Schwager needs to remember that he can't stay under the rear wing, the bumper of the Nissan. He's going to have to stick the nose of that Lamborghini out in the fresh air at some opportunity to keep the engine running at a relatively cool temperature.
Yeah, that's right. He's got to think about these things. Peter Dumbreck, meanwhile, I'm sure knows exactly where that Lamborghini is. The Corvette of Engelbert comes through, and then it's the Aston of Hohen Ardel, followed by Bertrand Baguette, then chased by Thomas Enger. There is Lucas Luhr. After that incident at the first corner, again for the second race in succession, finds himself down in 13th.
And car 7, Thomas Enger, and 23, Lucas Luhr. Currently an incident between them, that was the start, is under investigation by the stewards.
Yesterday they also investigated the incident that saw Crum get damage on his car with the number 41 Ford, which sort of sideswipes it, but it was put down to a racing incident. Of course, it is the first real tight corner on the track, and they all rush in there, and everyone's jostling for position. You're almost bound to get some incident down there. So the stewards have to decide if things are avoidable or not.
I think they looked at all the incidents. They decided they were, in essence, racing incidents. There wasn't any intent to cause issues. They weren't sort of going for a closing gap deliberately with the intent of banging into the car to gain an advantage. If there was, it would have been more severely punished.
But that incident is under investigation, as you say, so Thomas Enger will be, the video will be looked at, and I guess if anyone gets a penalty, it might be him, because he was the car on the inside, but he was going for a gap that was there, and it's up to the stewards to decide whether it was a racing incident or not. So there's the race leader, Marcus Winkelhock, chased by Jamie Campbell-Walter. Still Peter Dumbreck in 3rd. 4th place, the flying Lamborghini. But let's go and hear from Mike Hazemans what happened to his Corvette.
Mike, can you update us on why you've had an early retirement?
I have no clue. I think there was something in the gearbox or drive shaft, but they say it's in the gearbox. The differential has broken, so I just didn't have any traction anymore, so the car didn't move forward.
Thank you.
Well, we thought it might be something like that. Oh, we've got a drive-through penalty for Thomas Enger for causing an incident. So the stewards have decided on that first corner accident, and they've decided to penalise Thomas Enger for it, John.
And thank goodness they made that decision rapidly, because the worst thing is you allow a driver under investigation to work hard to try and improve his position, and then he gets the penalty late in his run, so they've issued that penalty at the earliest opportunity, and Thomas Enger will have to serve that out at the earliest opportunity.
Has massive ramifications though for the championship, because Lucas Luhr and Michael Schrum came into this Navarra event leading. They've had 2 accidents at the start of both races and really very little chance of scoring many points. They can still get in the top 10 today, but will they score well? Let's take a look at the start once again and watch Thomas Enger in the Aston Martin. He's behind the Nissan about mid-pack. It all gets bunched up and he almost has to go right to stop running into the back of Luhr.
Well, what he did was that there was space on the inside which he went for, but of course there was a closing gap, so he found himself in a concertina situation. He was right on the inside. Lucas Luhr came down on him, but the stewards have decided that it was Thomas Enger was the more guilty party in that incident, and consequently he's going to have to take a drive through.
Well, it's a tough first couple of corners here because they all just bottle up, and the guys coming in later, so they'll have to get on the brakes. It's tricky, but that's the decision that's made, and Enger's going to have to live with it.
And of course the other issue is, had Enger not gone for that gap, I can guarantee you whoever was behind Enger would have done.
Exactly.
So it just passes on down the line.
And if he hadn't gone for the gap, I think he probably would have run into the back of the Nissan, because it all checked up so quickly in front of him. Well, that's it, that's racing. So he's got the penalty now, and he's just been passed by the Ford. And whether he's trying to get out of the way or what, he knows he's got to drive through, but they wouldn't surely just let the car through, would he?
We didn't see quite how Enger came onto the back straight out of turn 8 down into turn 9, but clearly the Ford had pace. Nygaard was able to get past Thomas Enger, so Enger will probably wait to see whether he peels off this lap or not to serve that drive-through penalty, and he hasn't, he's staying out.
Yeah, not coming in yet then, so we'll see. Or is he? No, he is, John. No, he's not. Sorry, I wondered if he was going to come in that other entrance, but he stays out there. And no, that's the Bertrand Baguette trying to get past Hohenadel. He did for a fraction of a second, but then Hohenadel gets him back. Baguette made the move there yesterday and it worked, but it hasn't come off this time.
Tricky place to make it. You're coming out of turn 14 at high speed. You've got to get the anchors on very quickly indeed, and he just overran the corner and let the Ford get back again.
So that is for 6th place. Hohenadel hanging on to it. Let's take another look. He went for this late lunge.
Yep, he just dives down the inside, but the trouble is you can't get the speed off. The Aston cuts back, does the switch back, got the momentum, got the drive off the corner, and all the hard work done by Bertrand Baguette. Let's see, coming through turn 14, he sees an opportunity. Aston goes left, dive down the inside. Oh, she's not going to stop. Down to first gear. Look at the lock. He's almost on full lock. And there is the Aston on the inside, just clearing the Ford. And well, at least he had a go.
Yeah, absolutely, he had a go, and he's a racer. There's no doubt about it. He got it done yesterday, but couldn't quite get the car slowed down in time. Almost ran into the back of the black Corvette.
But it shows you Bertrand Baguette coming out of single-seater racing. That kind of aggression is very much a single-seater racing driver's mentality, whereas the traditionalist, the GT1 driver, with the back end of the Aston, and that's a car losing a position. Surely it must be. Baguette's got through cleanly this time, and it was a gift.
Yeah, and in fact he might lose another one to Christopher Nygaard. Hohenadel there, who had made the mistake in the Aston, lost a lot of momentum, and Christopher Nygaard, who's come alive in the yellow Ford. We do know that sometimes the mid-engine cars take a few laps to get the front tyres working properly. I almost wonder whether... Oh, here comes Enger in, yeah. Nygaard didn't seem to be flying in the first few laps, but he really is going well now, and maybe the whole car now starting to work properly as he closes up on Hohenadel, who's recovered from the moment, but can he fend off the Ford?
I think he's going to struggle. The Ford's up nearly alongside as they come, and the Aston's probably got a little bit more straight line squirt than the Ford, but the Ford is probably the quicker of the two cars currently on this lap. And now you've got Darren Turner looking also to try and find a way past Hohenadel and the Ford GT, so he'll be watching these two cars, not just simply the Ford ahead of him. He's got to keep an eye on the Hexus Aston as well.
So Thomas Enger will rejoin at the very back of the field. We've only had one retirement in the race so far. That is, of course, the Corvette of Hazeman's, which is now being pushed away to Parc Fermé. At the back of the field is the car that came to the pits earlier, Jan Claret, but I think Enger will be behind that one. We'll have to see when they come around next time. So looking in the middle of the pack, we've got Darren Turner there running in 9th place in his Aston Martin. He's behind Christopher Nygaard. Up front, you've got, well, this is the race going on for 3rd place now between Peter Dambrecht and Dominic Schwager. Nissan versus Lamborghini. So the Lambo has picked off a couple of cars and is now bearing down on that Nissan GTR. There is its teammate, though. That's Marcus Winkelhock, and he's now built the lead over the Nissan of Campbell Boulter.
Yeah, it's taken, we're on the 10th lap, has taken that time really for the Lamborghini to be able to find its stride, but past again. There we get the Ford up the inside of No, it's the other way around. It's the Aston trying to get back past ahead of the Ford.
That's right, yes, Hohenadel moving one way then the other, trying to get down the inside of Christopher Nygaard. Nygaard has got past him on this lap, but it's just Hohenadel trying to get him back. But as I say, Nygaard's car really working now, and Hohenadel having a look at trying to do what Baguette did earlier.
Yeah, very close indeed. The Aston almost had contact to the rear of the Ford, but Ford got good drive out of the corner. Slight compromise for Hohenadel, and Darren Turner should have been looking at that and trying to make use of it. Now Hohenadel pulls out, looks back, and gets back into line through turn one, flat out now onto the brakes for turn two. And Darren Turner's job is to watch both these cars and hope that they drive into each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So through the right-hander goes Darren Turner. See if there's any opportunity for him. It's Aston versus Aston now, because it's the Hex's car that is just ahead of him. So they're going to be pretty evenly matched in terms of performance, no doubt about it.
Well, I'm glad to see Darren Turner's got to go down in one gear for turn 5.
Yeah, it is. All tightens up when you hear, doesn't it? But that mid-engine Ford is working well. The front-engine Aston's perhaps struggling a little bit more as we go through this first stint. The clock ticking away. Remember, pit window opens up at 35 minutes to go.
Hohenadel is going to come under pressure from Darren Turner, and behind the second of the Fords, it's also shaping up to try and get a bit of that action as well.
So down the backstretch they come. Yeah, that's Lucas Luhr now trying to put Enrique Bernoldi under pressure. Sumo Power Nissan versus JR Motorsports. You're on board with Lucas. Last weekend he won the Nürburgring 24-hour race, a very different kind of race to the more sprint-like GT races here. But he's been out of luck at the start, as was his teammate yesterday, Michael Krum, with contact down at turn 3. Now what can he do to try and recover some of the lost ground? He's got to try and pass his own teammate, and that's not going to be easy. Enrique Bernoldi, one of the toughest to pass.
Yeah, he'll be hard. Remember, David Coulthard struggled for almost a Grand Prix in Monaco and complained bitterly, but the difference was Enrique Bernoldi had the position. Lucas Luhr looks to try and get under the rear wing coming through the final turn, but Bernoldi slightly earlier into the corner, gets on the throttle that bit earlier, and again is able to eke away. Lucas pulls out to the right, gets air into the radiator of his Nissan. They all worry about temperature here. It is still in the, well, it's 31 Celsius, drop back fractionally. Track temperature still 44.4.
Very close behind him there, but of course they've got the same traction, same power. And into the pits again has come Thomas Enger. Now he's had his drive-through already, puncture on that car, so they must have picked up some debris somewhere.
I don't know what it would have been. We didn't see him after he left the pit lane to get back onto track. We don't know whether that was an error of driving, whether it was something simply he picked up on the track, or well, we wait to find out what the cause was.
So Bernoldi versus Lucas Luhr as Thomas Enger brings the car in. Tyre change. Unfortunately, it's not within the pit window yet. We're still over 5 minutes away from the time that
they've got a problem with the gun. Had to change guns. That's the right rear. We don't know where he picked it up. There's no apparent damage to the rear of the car, but look at Thomas Enger, the back rear of the car up in the air, the left front pawing itself, but can't get the car to slow down the hill into turn 9.
Oh,
what a disaster day it's been for Enger.
Massively frustrating.
Absolutely.
He's on his way once again, but there's no chance of really scoring any points here. You're looking there at Peter Dambrecht in third place as the leaders come across the line. That's 12 laps completed by Marcus Winkelhock. The gap to second place is 6.4 with Jamie Campbell-Walter. Here's the race for third, though, and there's not much gap there between the Nissan and the Lamborghini.
Well, he is trying to pass the Scotsman, and they are stubborn, not going to give up that position easily. Peter Dambrecht doing a good job in the Nissan in third place, running at the same-ish, roughly the same pace as Jamie Campbell-Walter, but as the lead Lamborghini now has extended that gap to 6.5 seconds.
All of the cars are still fairly close to one another. They're not that stretched out as yet, and of course with the pit stops coming up, I think we might see a few changes of position going on. The Corvette there of Engelbert running 5th, Baguette behind him in 6th, then the yellow Ford is Christopher Nygaard in the car he shares with Vanina Hicks. Then further down the order there, of course, is Lucas Luhr. He's still in 11th place behind Bas Linders in the 4. Yes, he's got past Bernoldi, sorry, missed that. He got past the Sumo Power car of Enrique Bernoldi. There you are, so Bernoldi now is having to defend from Clivio Piccioni.
Clivio Piccioni also having a difficult day. He was one of those cars involved in turn 3 at the start of an opening lap of this event. But nevertheless, he will have an opportunity when Hexes make their pit stop. Can they repeat their magic pit stop times and gain track position through being very savvy in the pit lane?
Now this is how Lucas Luhr passed Enrique Bernoldi, John. This up towards turn 9 on the backstretch, isn't
yes,
it?
it is. He just simply decides he's going to overtake him. He just a little bit later in the brakes. It's almost as if there was a bit of telepathy going on between the two drivers to advise one to keep out of the way of the other one. Well, no such thing as team orders.
Of course not. But
and they are rival teams in effect.
They are rival teams, but they have the same outright owner.
Where's the Lamborghini in 4th place?
Now, there
it is.
It was so tucked under the Nissan, you couldn't see it at all, but it's still there. So Dominic Schwager is still trying to find his way past Peter Dumbreck, and couldn't quite get any closer, I think, to the back of that Nissan.
Well, he was hoping to get the slipstream up the straight, but of course there's so much power with the Nissan that even in spite of having to punch a hole in the air, he was able to drag the Lamborghini along behind, but the Lambo didn't have the grunt when it counted at the end of the straight to get alongside and maybe put the Nissan under pressure.
But as you said earlier, running that close behind a car in front, it's going to make everything run very hot, isn't it?
It is, and that's the concern that I would think that Dominic Schwager has got, assuming he's picking up that information off the screen. That's what's happening with the Ford.
That Baguette trying to get past Engelbert. It is, and he's got up the inside. He did make the move stick, so that was his favourite place, turn 15.
And he was so far over to the right that I doubt Engelbert actually saw him there. Came out of turn 14, put the car on the right-hand side of the track and got the position, and he's now beginning to open up a small gap, but I expect that gap will probably considerably increase.
So there is still Dumbreck sliding the Nissan as we get within 2 minutes now of the pit window opening up. Who's going to come into the pits first to make the driver change? Of course, it'll be a tyre change as well, and then it depends a little on who's got fresh tyres to use in the second stint. Make a big difference through that past the pit entry they come, not coming into the pits as yet, otherwise they'd only have to make an extra stop. Got to wait until that pit window time is opened up. The rest of the file through. Lucas Law, having got past Bernaldi, getting a little close to the back of Bas Linders in his Ford, but that car's not going to be easy. And as you can see, the Alinkel team already getting prepared, as is Sumo Power, for some early stops.
So will they bring in the 4th place car first of all? I suspect that they might do, and let the lead car with Marcus Winkelhock in it stay out. He's lapping still over a second a lap quicker than anybody else in the field, so if you're in the groove, in the rhythm, let them stay out and bring him in at the back end of the pit stop window. Looks again, pulls out, gets a bit of fresh air into the Lamborghini radiators, and then through the long sweeping turn 5 that eventually, and the Ford has spun Bas Linders.
Yeah, that's Linders, who was running in 10th place. So that's allowed Lucas Law to gain another place. That was the one he was chasing.
Yeah, strange pace up at turn 3 on your own to do that. But anyway, Baz got
Was it on his own, I wonder?
Well, it was on his own by the time we saw him getting back on track. Let's look at it again. It was. He was on the outside. But was he having a battle with Lucas Law?
Yeah, Law just passed him there.
So he just simply misjudged it, ran wide, and got on the very marbly outside of the racetrack. A lot of rubber has been shred by the tyres over the weekend. And if you get offline and pick up that rubber, it's just like ball bearings.
Yeah, that's right. So Marcus Winkelhock continues to lead this race. He's got to do at least another lap because we're still seeing the clock count down. Thomas Enger a lap down, of course. The lead is now nearly 10 seconds of Marcus Winkelhock over Jamie Campbell-Walter. And meanwhile, Dumbreck and Dominic Schwager come through 3rd and 4th. Then Bertrand Baguette, who's going very quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say Bertrand Baguette, now that he's got clear of the Aston, is running a second a lap, approximately quicker than Dominic Schwager, who of course is tucked up behind the rear of Dumbreck's Nissan.
Oh, look at that. What a call. As the clock went to 34.59, Lucas Law came into the pit. That was the team judging it to perfection, I think. They just managed to get him in as the pit window opened up there.
Well, the window's either open or closed.
Dominic Schwager very
Schwager
wide.
just runs wide, and I think that will be the first of those two Alinkel Lamborghinis, because he's had to work the car very hard indeed as 2 Nissans come in.
Yeah, Rinaldi's the other Nissan, but also in his Bas Linders, they chose to come in at that precise moment, and I think that's one of the Hex's cars in as well. Yeah, Piccioni handing over to Dusseldorp. So who's going to get the car out first of all? The 2 mechanics on each car whizzing around as quickly as possible to change all 4 tyres. Who's it going to be? Great competition between all of them. The drivers have got their colleagues strapped in. JR Motorsports
stalled. The Aston has stalled.
Oh, and it's a slow getaway for Steph Dusseldorp. Yeah, he's trying to fire it up, and he's lost a bit of ground there. But interestingly, amongst the Nissans, no change, because that number 23 car was already in front of number 20, and it stays that way. And Bas Linders has switched over now So that means that coming out onto the track is Mark Canarici in the Ford.
Yeah, and it'll be Nicky Katzberg on the second of the Nissans winning. They didn't switch the transponder over in normal story. So the lead Lamborghini stays out. Second place Lamborghini Campbell Walter comes in. David Brabham will be in the car. Dumbreck comes in, as does Dominic Schweiger.
Yeah, so this is another really interesting battle going to go happening in the pits here for second, third, fourth places. It'll all be down to their pit crews. Looks as though the Corvette is in as well, which was under some pressure there from Nygaard. So Christopher Nygaard has stayed out there. The Ford is working really well, and the race leader also has stayed out. There he is, Marcus Winkelhock, with a very healthy advantage. But these guys, Schwager and Pastorelli jumping aboard now, and there at the number 21 car is Campbell Walter handing over to David Brabham, Sumo Power. And of course remember that JR Motorsports have also got the Peter Dumbreck car handed over to Richard Westbrook in pit lane as well. And behind this Al Enkel car you've got the Corvette. Michael Rossi is climbing aboard, so great pit action.
Lamborghini's gone.
Yeah, that looked good from Al Enkel. Where does he come out relative to everyone else?
Ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, and David Brabham gets going. So that was a real gain for the Lamborghini, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and Maxime Martin has to concede to Richard Westbrook coming out in his Nissan. But what a score for the Lamborghini. Nicky Pastorelli has done a great job. So have the guys in the team to get their car to make that pass in the pit lane. Makes your life so much easier.
Yeah, that is fantastic stuff, and it should have brought the second Lamborghini up into second place as a result of that, once all the pit stops have been made. But at the moment I can tell you that Winkelhock still leads and Nygaard is second. He hasn't handed over to Vanina X yet. He's staying out there for a little bit longer before he does so. You've now got the Aston Martins here. Darren Turner has switched over to Stefan Muka, and he's being chased by Andrea Piccini now in the number 4 Hexus Aston Martin. There's the race leader though, and Jamie Campbell-Walter doesn't look very happy, does he?
No, there's an issue there somewhere. I mean, he's not a happy camper whatsoever. Something has taken place. You can see he's having a talk with an engineer.
Remember, they were passed by the Lamborghini in that pit stop, and I think perhaps that's the reason he's so upset.
I think words have been said, and somebody's been offended by it.
Yeah, not happy because the Al Enkel team have turned him over, basically, and Jamie's not that happy. So let's go down and hear from him. Haley's there.
Jamie, can you just explain what's going on with yourself?
Had a good start, got into second, stayed with the Lambo for as long as I could. Rear tyres started to go off, so just tried to drive as smoothly as I could.
What's been making you angry out there?
Well, a Nissan blocked another Nissan in the pit lane. It's completely unnecessary, I think, and I think the team's just made a mistake. But because all that's happened is that we've lost a place to the 4th place Lamborghini. So anyway. It is what it is, and obviously maybe the team have got a reason for that decision. I don't know.
Thank you.
Well, that explains a lot. Yeah, they couldn't get there. He feels as though they were blocked by the other car, and that's why he's so upset. There was a bit of a puff of smoke, I noticed, from this lead 38 car, but I think it's all right. It's probably just brake dust. The brake's obviously getting very hot, and the leader is now in. Now, they come in with a very healthy advantage over their own teammates now, who, as Jamie told us in the interview, did indeed jump from 4th to second as a result of that pit stop.
Well, I mean, it was an absolute no-brainer. The Al Enkel team did a great job to get the 4th place Lamborghini out ahead of the 2 Nissans that were ahead of it, and clearly Jamie very dissatisfied with the management of the pit stops, those 2 cars coming in together and maybe tripping over one another, and he wasn't sort of holding it back, was he?
No, he wasn't. Lovely roll-out technique from Marcus Winkelhock as he now helps Mark Basseng get into the Lamborghini. And
the Schweiger car, Pastorelli car, is coming up through turn 13 roughly as the 38 car gets underway, and this is Mark Basseng in that car. There is the 2nd place car, we think. I don't think it's going to make up enough ground. No, it's not, nowhere near it.
No, they had such a healthy lead, didn't they? Because the other Lamborghini had to fight its way up from the 4th row of the grid. So it's got into second, and when you consider that they started in 7th...
It's just coming through turn 15 now.
Yeah, that's right. So Mark Basseng is out with a comfortable advantage. Still half an hour to go, still half of this race to go, and they've got to look after and nurse the car to get it home.
But certainly the 2nd place car now is in clear air, which it wasn't for the first part of this race. So now it can be a little bit less pressure on that Pastorelli drive, that he doesn't have to think about temperatures, just think about maintaining his position, supporting the lead car with Mark Basseng.
I tell you who has lost out in all the pit stops, John. It's the black Corvette just heading down the straight there, because it's down to 9th place now with Michael Rossi. So whether they had a problem on their pit stop or whatever, they have definitely dropped several places.
Well, certainly the drive of Engelbert to me has been one of the highlights of the weekend. Unexpectedly good performance yesterday, and another very good performance today.
So out in front, Marc Basseng, team manager as well as driver. He'll just want to look after that lead and nurse the car home as much as possible and try and take their second championship victory of the season and get themselves back into a championship lead, which they had earlier this year. Of course, it was taken from them, and we saw Michael Krum and Lucas Lohr go ahead. But Krum and Lohr, well, they're now in 8th place, by the way, so they are going to be on for scoring some points. The pit stops sort of worked quite well for them because they got past that black Corvette. So that's the gain for them, and definitely they are at least on target for scoring some points. They now basically have to hope that some of the others ahead of them have problems, or they can pass maybe one or two of them. They're some 3 seconds behind the Hexis Aston ahead of them.
Yeah, the lap times roughly half a second a lap quicker for Krum over Piccini, so that's just on their basic first flying lap in the car. Wait and see a little bit more stability after another couple of laps, whether Krum can make any inroads into Piccini.
And let's just see, this is Max Martin trying to line up Richard Westbrook for 4th position. Max Martin, the Ford GT, had some good moves yesterday, didn't he? But I wonder if he can do the same in the second part of this race.
It'll only come towards the end of the stint when, in theory, and in the case of the Nissan Richard Westbrook, they end up with a lot less grip at the rear than they started this session with. That's the balance of the Ford is a better car balance. Remember, it is a pure race car design as a road-going version of the race car design, and the Nissan is the GTR is a stunning road car as opposed to being a race car, and there's a problem.
That's Stefan Mucker, and he's pulling off to the side of the road, and that is bitterly disappointing. I don't know what's happened to them.
Right front, I think it might be a problem, hard to tell, as the car breaks its way around slowly around the track. So not a great weekend for Stefan Mucker and for old Darren Turner. Yeah,
not a great weekend for young driver in all, John, because they had a drive-through for Enger and then problems, didn't they? So the car's just died on him.
I think that's on the exit of turn 3. It's difficult to tell in that shot. Certainly going slowly down the main straight.
Doesn't make too much difference in terms of positions. They were running 9th. It promotes Nicky Katzberg in the Nissan he shares with Enrique Bernoldi, which doesn't seem to have changed they don't seem to have changed their transponder. So I think the team manager's been called up to the race director to say something about that. But anyway, it is Nicky Katzberg in that car now. He's being chased by Steph Dusseldorf. There you are, you're on board with Steph Dusseldorf. The number 3 Aston Martin, right behind Nicky Katzberg. Katzberg, remember, in his first event in a Nissan, there's been various driver changes there at the Nissan team. But the fastest lap, that's interesting, has gone to the 2nd place car.
Yeah, just on the last lap, that 1:37.9 has popped up. Now that's 1.5 seconds away from the lap record set last year by Peter Cox in a Lamborghini Murcielago, just like the 2 cars that are leading this weekend. So I suspect what's happened is the new circuit last year was exceptionally grippy, and now that it's beginning to mature in weather, a little bit of that grip, the initial grip you get on a new track, is beginning to go away.
Down into turns 2 and 3, which keep on tightening, and down the gears as you turn, and then back on the power again. You're still riding on board the Hexis Aston Martin of Steph Dusseldorf, the tall youngster who leapt out of Formula 3 at the end of last year and has looked like a GT1 veteran ever since. He's been really, really strong this season. They had that brilliant victory in Abu Dhabi, and he's been pretty solid throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, start your first race or first season in GT1 and win the championship race is no mean achievement, and he did it under pressure from Nissan. But it's ebbs and flows with circuits. Some circuits suit some cars a little more than others, and certainly the Abu Dhabi circuit was a great circuit for the Aston Martin from the Hexis team.
So Marc Basseng is the race leader in car number 38. Just look at the pit stop though here. Now the mechanic's flying around the car, changing the wheels. Now one mechanic wasn't back over the line
over the hose
when the car left the pit.
Was that a shadow? Is that a shadow or is it a hose?
But I think
the mechanic himself is still behind the rear of the car.
Yeah, and I think
that's under investigation.
Well, I'm not sure if it's under investigation. A drive-through penalty for car 20 we've got. But that was an interesting one. Whether that's going to be a problem for them in terms of the mechanic perhaps should have been back behind the yellow line before the car left the box. So that might be something that is looked at.
And then Nicky Katzberger's drive-through penalty for starting the engine while the car was still up on its air jacks.
Right, so he fired the engine up too soon. You've got to wait until the car hits the ground before you press the starter, and so Nicky Katzberg's got into trouble for that. Strange that he's got caught for that, because he's been in GT1 this year. It's first drive for Nissan, but of course he's been driving the Corvette up till now.
You know, sometimes you get information from the pit wall, say fire it up, and it may have been Nicky Katzberg just was a bit too keen to get the engine running. We don't know.
So at the moment it is Marc Basseng who leads in the Lamborghini by some 13 seconds over his teammate Nicky Pastorelli in another Al Inkel car. Now what's going on here? Max Martin still, no, not Max Martin, yes it is, trying to get past Westbrook. No way through there, because the Nissan has plenty of straight line speed down into turn 9, and Max Martin has been sitting there behind that Nissan for quite a few laps.
Yeah, he's just, all he can try to do is harry Richard Westbrook as much as possible to make him force pressure to the rear of the Nissan to get the tyre working, overheat the tyre, hopefully get it to lose some rear end grip, and that will give Martin the opportunity with the better balanced Ford GT. That's realistically the only hope that Maxime Martin's got, other than maybe traffic or something out of the control of Richard Westbrook.
Yeah, Richard will be hoping to drive that car as smoothly as he can to look after the rear tyres, but it's the number of laps and the heat and the nature of the circuit that will make that difficult. Good exit. You see how the Ford carried good speed through the corner, but then the sheer grunt of the Nissan pulls it away.
Oh, I mean, it's just a different world. I mean, it's just, I mean, the size of the car and its inefficiency aerodynamically in terms of the hole that's got a punch in the air compared to the Ford GT, and that's just done with sheer horsepower.
Interesting, John. You know that replay we just showed of the pit stop? Well, team manager car 38 has been asked to report to the race director immediately.
And he's driving the car.
He is actually, but he has Henrik is there to do that for him when he's in the car. So he'll be heading up to see the race director, and we may well get a decision. And that could mean a drive-through for the race leader. That's going to change things around.
That would be a severe penalty.
Yeah.
I don't know what they can do otherwise. I mean, if it was the engineer was what, half a second away from being. Look at Martin getting right again, close to the back and the exit of turn 8 to Richard Westbrook. But again, the power that the Nissan's got, just and Westbrook's so experienced. He knows precisely how to deal with pressure, and he knows the strengths that he has got, and he's not going to be forced into overdriving the car unnecessarily.
That's right, but there's a long way to go. Still 21 minutes to hang on in there and try and stay ahead of what is potentially a faster car. The Ford better set up, really, better naturally built for a track like this one. So Richard is going to do his utmost. He had to be a bit defensive there, going into the corner in the middle of the road. Perfectly justified, but look how close the Ford is now to the back of the Nissan.
Have a look down the inside, not close enough. No, the danger if he launches himself down the inside is Westbrook will see it. He'll give him room to shoot forward. He'll overshoot the corner. Again, pulls out of the turn 15. But there it is. Horsepower versus grace.
Yeah, and there's no way he can challenge. But he's just trying to get some air into the car there, I think. He knows he's not going to overtake down the main straight. But Max Martin making sure he gets some air through to the brakes and the cooling systems, and then he can close back up again through the twisty stuff here.
So the drop down through turn 4 flat out for everybody. This is the entry to turn 5. It's a difficult entry, and you're coming down there about 220 clicks. You've got to get on the brakes, go down a gear, and then it's a big break into turn 6 as we see the Nissan, and this is Benoldi and Katzberg serving out that drive-through penalty. Nicky Katzberg fired the engine up before the car was off the air jacks.
Yeah, damage to the front of that car from earlier on.
Yeah, that was on the first lap.
So Katzberg gets back out onto the circuit. That has dropped him back a little bit down the order. So it doesn't look as though he's going to be able to get points in this race, but we'll wait and see, because there's still some way to go. We're still wondering if there's going to be any action taken over this car, the number 38 machine of Marc Basseng and Marcus Winkelhock. They have a very comfortable advantage of some 13 seconds, but it won't be enough if they do get any kind of drive-through penalty, because it's a long pit lane here, and you do lose a lot of time coming through the pits. They have now completed 24 laps. We've got under 20 minutes to go, and Marc Basseng's just got to keep his concentration and his focus. There's his teammate Nicky Pastorelli in second place. The Nissan of David Brabham running well in third position. Enjoyed one podium so far this year, could be on for another one here, because he's way ahead, John, of the Westbrook Martin battle here.
Yeah, I mean, running in again clear air for David Brabham, not bothered by anybody behind pressuring or not having to force the car to try and catch up to Pastorelli in the second place Lamborghini, because frankly the pace of the Lamborghini and the Nissan sufficient to keep Pastorelli comfortably in second place. There's a 3.3 second gap, but I don't think we're going to see a serious threat from David Brabham with 18.5 minutes to go.
No, that's right, but Max Martin still is a threat to Richard Westbrook and will be throughout, because as the tyre wear is a factor, it's going to be more and more difficult for him. Max Martin's got to be patient. He's got to wait for the ideal opportunity. Westbrook won't make it easy.
It's coming now down in the inside into turn 8. That was the first real opportunity. Don't know whether it got done.
Drive-through penalty for the race leader, though. It is, as we thought, the mechanic who changed the tyres. No, that move didn't happen. The race leader will have to make a drive-through penalty, and that's going to cost them a huge amount of time. The question is, where will it bring them back out? And that's going to be an interesting one. Could bring the air around 4th or 5th.
It's going to bring it out, I would think, pretty close to this battle currently going on for 4th or 5th. They are 25 seconds in the case of Maxime Martin behind what was the leader's gap. And in fact, it could even be as far down as 6th place, and that would be Andrea Puccini in the first of the Hexus Aston Martins.
Yeah, and it makes this race for a podium slot, so it becomes even more important. And you can imagine that Max Martin will be given that information once the Lamborghini has made its drive-through, which presumably will be fairly quickly. They always like to try and get them done as soon as they can. Again, he moves out of the slipstream, not to overtake, but simply to get that air through the car and not to let it cook too much in the slipstream of the Nissan. And certainly the Nissan makes a big hole in the air. There's not much cooling air behind it. So Max Martin follows through. He knows that's not going to be his chance to overtake. About halfway around the lap at the moment with the lead number 38 Lamborghini, and we're expecting to see him come in this time. I would think they will try and do that.
Well, he's on the back straight, comes down to turn 9, and then it's only a couple more corners, 3 corners before he would have the opportunity to dive into the pit lane and no doubt serve that out as quickly as possible. As we look at the second place and third place, the Nissan in third, with David Brabham behind the wheel, Nicky Pastorelli in the second place Lamborghini, which will immediately become the lead Lamborghini.
Interestingly, Bastain's upped his pace now. That last lap was a 1:38.7, which is 3/4 of a second faster than the guys behind him. Is he going to come straight in now?
He's got to go in now. He must do it now immediately,
yeah.
As soon as possible. The speed limit 60 kilometres per hour, and it's before you get to the turn that takes you onto the pit lane. So not only is it a long pit lane, it's a slow entry and an even slower drive down. There's second place, which is about to become first, and third that's going to become second.
It's a long pit lane, but at least you do cut off a little bit of the top of the lap, so in some ways that helps. But let's just see where this is going to bring him back out.
It's actually going to put him in third place, I judge. It could even be in second place. He's now at the pit lane exit. He can get on the gas as the first of the Lamborghinis comes through. It's going to be key. Can he get the car up to speed and keep the second place, or from his third place? So it is a Lamborghini 1-2. He's managed to get that drive through and really only lose one position. That is a result.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really thought he would be further back than that, but it just goes to show that he had enough of an advantage there over his teammate. And that last lap quick spurt that he put in, I think that probably earned him second. He would have been third otherwise.
Well, it took a 1:51.7 to do the drive through against the 1:39 of Pastorelli. So the time in the pit lane literally was just the time it took him to lose his lead and finish, or not finish, but return in second place. And I tell you, I think Marc Bastaing will be delighted. That will be for him probably the biggest result of the weekend.
Question is, does the team try and swap them around? I mean, I don't think so, because Dominic and Nicky have had a pretty tough season. They've yet to take a victory in a championship race. They do deserve it. Here comes Max Martin again on Richard Westbrook. Still no chance on the drag, though. That backstretch, he's never going to do it there because the Nissan is that much faster in a straight line. He has to try and do it in one of the twisty parts. But that's going to be difficult because there's just not much space down here.
Just watching the rear of the Nissan coming out of turn 9, I thought there's an indication of a little bit of give up on the rear tyres. Richard having to be very judicious with the throttle pedal, not being aggressive. Maxime Martin tries to dive down the outside into turn 13. not to get past, but to try and come back up on the inside.
We've got another drive-through, and it is for Richard Westbrook. Number 22 has been cited as a violation of Article 114. Well, we'll have to... Oh, he's being passed. He's got past now. Has the Ford. It's nipped through there at turn 15 at that favourite overtaking spot, but the Nissan will get him back down the straight because it's so powerful down the straight that the Ford has no answer. But Max Martin need not worry because the number 22 car Westbrook has been given a drive-through. Well, that is a real shock.
And Peter Dumbrecht wonders what that's all about, so we need to get the articles out to look at Article 114 to see what it is that Richard Westbrook...
It's an unsafe release, John, from the pit stop. It's an unsafe release. We'll have to go back to the pit stops to try and look at what happened in a moment.
Well, you know that Jamie Campbell-Warder was very, very angry about how the Nissan team orchestrated the changeover from the two Nissans as the Ford again breathing all over or all around the back of the Nissan. And eventually, well, obviously the drive-through will make Maxime Martin's task easy. He will not have to worry about having to pass on the circuit. It will be a pass as a result of a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, I hope that somebody's told him, because otherwise he might put his car in danger.
Well, that's what team managers are there for, but not necessarily what they always do. But look, right under the rear wing, everywhere. Now down the inside into turn 10.
And Westbrook, actually, to be fair to him, didn't even try and fight it. And that's, you know, being professional. He knows he's heading into the pits for a drive-through. No point at all in trying to block the guy who's been quicker now that he's going to be coming into the pit. So Westbrook's fought hard while he could, but now he's got to make this drive-through penalty, heads into pit lane, and that means that Max Martin is now up into fourth position. After the drive-through, we wondered whether he might be on for a podium finish, but of course the drive-through for the race leader, just looking at Lucas Luhr there, drive-through for the leader still brought him back out in second. So it's Richard Westbrook's turn to trundle literally down the pit lane, and he loses places to the Hexis Aston Martin, to Lucas Luhr and Michael Krum. Michael Krum picking up the points here, John. Lucas Luhr and Michael Krum, you know, suddenly things not looking quite so bad for them as they were in the early stages of this race.
All they had to do was just try and drive cleanly as Richard Westbrook rejoins, but the key is that Maxime Martin is only 8 seconds behind David Brabham in that final podium position. The problem is there are only 12 minutes of the race remaining.
He comes out just in front of Mark Enrici, and Enrici thought he'd try and have a go at getting past him and nearly run out of road.
Well, he did. He went off at the racetrack and again just about managed to keep the car on the racetrack on the exit of turn 4.
Back with the leaders, it's the number 37 car of Pastorelli that is leading this one by just under 2 seconds from his teammate. Lap times are very similar last time around between the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, basically they're driving to the flag. They've 11.5 minutes to go. There's no pressure from David Brabham. The gap between Brabham and second place is 2 seconds. The gap between David Brabham and the leader is just under 4 seconds. So no real threat to these leading Lamborghinis, and no doubt they will finish in the order that they are currently on the circuit.
Yeah, and we'll keep an eye on those lap times, but I can't imagine that they're going to really force the issue here. They need to protect the position. It's still going to be a good result for Basseng and Winkelhock, but they are maybe being made aware of the fact that Lucas Luhr and Michael Krum are going to score some decent points, and they're not going to lose out as much as we thought they might. David Brabham still holding on to third place, remember, in his Nissan. Max Martin now in fourth place. Fifth place for Andrea Piccini in the Hexis Aston Martin. Sixth place now for Michael Krum.
And only 1.3 seconds behind, so that'll be a battle to the flag. 10.5 minutes now remaining.
So we're going to have a little look at that unsafe release. We've got a shot. There's Alex Muller being lapped there, so he's just kept out of the way in the Aston Martin, allowing these guys to come through. Remember, Alex Muller and Thomas Enger, their race really went wrong much earlier on, so they're not fighting for the position, whereas that car is right in the background.
Okay, they release it as the 4 GTs coming down. Now, I don't know whether they call that unsafe release. It didn't look like it was as dangerous as it was indicated. But of course the stewards take a different view. Those issues are dealt with, and if that was considered by the stewards to be a dangerous release by the Nissan team, then the penalty has to be paid.
Yep.
But I've seen worse. In fairness, I've seen worse than that.
It has been, and Westbrook is now in 9th place after that drive-through penalty. So it had a much bigger impact, the drive-through, because of the lead that Basseng and Winkelhock had built up earlier. His one had a much bigger impact.
Of course, the problem is with these drive-through penalties, once they're issued, there is no grounds for appeal. You've got to serve it. And if they look at it again and think, well, maybe were we too harsh? It's a bit late, but let's hope that the stewards did get that right. That was a correct call, and the penalty had to be served.
But what a run this has been by the Alincourt team, John. I mean, they were 1-2 yesterday in the other way round. The Lamborghinis, they always knew this track would suit them.
Well, a big lock-up, and is that a problem with the right front? I think it is. I think it may well be a puncture, because that brake, well, it certainly dragged all the way from turn 2 into turn 3. And, well, that's an unexpected surprise from Nicky Pastorelli. Where did that one come from, Nicky?
Whether it's just a flat spot that he's...
Well, he will do. He'll have a flat spot now, that's for sure.
He will now, yeah. As you say, it sort of dragged all the way through the corner, but the tyre still seems okay. Let's take another look.
Well, there it is, into turn 2, and holds it just locked all the way through. I mean, I've never seen a brake lock. I mean, that's as if there's a problem on that right front brake.
So I wouldn't want to be riding in that car now.
Look at Schweiger. Look at his look. Well, what's up? I mean, what's going on?
Bit of a smirk on Winkelhock's face, though, because you might see that as an opportunity, because it will have worn a real flat spot on that tyre. And of course, you really do set yourself up for a puncture then, don't you?
Well, not just that, it becomes extremely difficult to drive the car, because the tyre will be so out of balance that with that flat spot, that at times it is physically impossible to drive a race car. Now, that may not be quite as bad as the Winkelhock's, or the Passer will not be quite as bad as I'm making it sound, but it can be pretty damn awful.
Yeah, it can be very tricky. We'll have to see. So Dominic Schweiger watching that one. We saw his reaction. Let's go and see what he actually has to say about it.
Dominic, is that going to cause Nicky problems out there?
I don't know. I hope not. We had problem with the brakes all weekend, and I hope it works out until the end. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't work out again, but for now I'm just watching, and we'll see what happens. I just hope he can finish it.
It's quite an achievement for Mark to get back out in second place. Is it likely that Nicky's going to allow him to pass?
I think they had a quite easy race, because they could build up a big lead, so it's good if we could finish 1-2. And a lot of times we missed out, so even with second place I would be pretty pleased, but I just hope we can finish without any problems. We really need the points.
Thank you.
Interesting one, John.
Yeah, but just on this lap we're on, coming into turn 2, once again Nicky Pastorelli had the same problem, not as acute as one lap ago. So the problem that Dominic Schweiger is advising us of now, and we hadn't really clocked, is affecting the Lamborghini, but it appears to be only into one corner, and that's into turn 2 and 3, where the inside, the right wheel, is unloaded for quite a length of time. But a racing driver's got to learn to adapt.
Yeah, just notice he did it again there into that left-hand.
Well, that's a left-hander as opposed to a right-hander, so it's affecting the unloaded wheel, and in this case it was the left, but up at turn 2 it's the right.
Staying with the second place Lamborghini here, and this is of course Marc Basseng working the car still quite hard as he comes around the latter part of the lap up to turn 14 and then 15. You'll see them punching his way down through the gears there. He is his second, as you can see. Still having to do quite a lot of work on the steering wheel, isn't he?
Yeah, well, again, there's the problem. The track is 6 minutes remaining. The tyres are, showing the duration. The wear is coming. The temperature is building up, and the grip that you have with a fresh set of tyres will go away in this sort of 30 minutes or so of the race that we got Basseng and Pastorelli behind the wheel of the cars. Didn't appear to be any smoke from the onboard view from Marc Basseng of the lead car. So Nicky Pastorelli's maybe been able to make a sufficient adjustment in the cockpit to try and get around that front locking that we had seen just a moment ago.
And you saw from the comparison times that actually Basseng hasn't been catching Pastorelli over the last lap or two, even though Pastorelli's had that lock-up problem.
But David Brabham actually is half a second a lap quicker in the last lap. The gap between third and second is 2.1 seconds. So David Brabham has been advised that there is an opportunity. If you push Basseng, you may actually get a result. The trouble is, again, the clock's ticking away and it's just over 5 minutes.
It's a lovely onboard view, this. You really get a clear shot through the Lamborghini windscreen, and you get to see the dashboard, see that gear change indicator very clearly. Into the left-hander now, getting second gear there.
And see how the exit of turn 11 just suddenly comes towards you, as if the track actually is cut back deliberately to make the exit trickier than the entry.
So, the number 38 car still running in second position, and looking to score very useful points, but remember that in 6th place, the former championship leaders coming into this event, Lucas Luhr and Michael Crum, have managed to try and get something out of the weekend. It all started pretty poorly for them with a shunt into the first corner, and it looked bad again today with another accident in the first corner, but they have come back. They've kept the head. They haven't sort of allowed themselves to get down about it. There is David Brabham though, and
slowly, I mean, 2 or 3 tenths a lap. He is running quicker than the second place Lamborghini of Marc Bassang. The problem is the gap is still just 2 seconds, 0.27 of a second. As we look at the 4th place Ford Maxime Martin, he's a further 4.8 seconds behind the 3rd place car of David Brabham.
Yeah, he's in a bit of a lonely spot there now, isn't he, that Ford? Meanwhile, here you've got now, this could be some more points for Michael Crum, because he's closed right up to the back of Andrea Piccini in the Hexis Aston Martin. Now, with just 3 3/4 minutes left, does the Nissan go for the lunge and try and get a few extra points? You never know at the end of the season. It could be a very tight championship battle, and it could make all the difference, but you've got to finish the race too.
Well, I mean, the Nissan certainly got the squirt where it counts, and as long as he's got rubber under him, he will have a position potentially into turn 8, not on this lap. Again, that's one of the favourite overtaking areas. Getty into the turn 8, good apex, gets good drive out of the corner, probably slightly better than the Aston directly ahead of him, Piccini, but no apparent advantage down this short straight into turn 9.
Uses left foot braking, as you can see, and very interesting watching him left foot on the brake. No clutch use, of course, in the gear changes, so he doesn't use the clutch at all. He's just all on the left foot on the braking, and it's a lovely shot that to be able to sort of watch the sort of dancing that goes on the pedals.
Yeah, if you've got the capacity, I mean, these are young drivers, they've come up with left foot braking. The old school style of braking with your right foot is a very difficult one to change, but he is going to give Piccini a hard time with just 2.5 minutes of this race to go.
Yeah, really modulating that brake pedal too, which is interesting. You can see into the corners.
Struggles to get the nose of the Nissan in to the final turn. The Aston gains a small advantage on the exit. So, well, Michael Crum, that was a disappointment. He had done the good work to get himself. He's within 3/4 of a second. The long view from the Nissan, the wide-angle camera lens, make it looks even more. But he's now got just 2 minutes remaining.
The Black Corvette, which was running so well, it's got back some of that because it's into 7th, partly as a result of Westbrook's drive-through penalty, of course. So they've reclaimed some of the ground. They were running so strongly in the early part of the race, but overall this weekend, this car has been a bit of a revelation. I think Engelbert and Michael Rossi, they've definitely had their best weekend of the season. It's only the second time they've been teamed up together, and it's nice to see, John, that Michael Rossi now has a teammate that he can really depend upon. They seem very evenly matched, they're good friends, and they seem to be getting on very well.
And the other thing for me is the Corvette is such a great race car. I mean, Chevy built this, Pratt & Miller built these cars for Chevy, for General Motors in the States, and they build pretty much bulletproof 24-hour race cars, and they're also very competitive race cars.
Yeah, and it's a great effort by the team, another fairly small team there, TKR Engineering. And they're going to get some points here today for this race, no doubt about it. But the Lamborghinis are still 1st and 2nd. Look, Brabham is a bit closer again, isn't he?
And he's cut 0.4 of a second off the advantage of the second place Bassing car. So let's look and see what the gap is. 1.6 was the difference. And it is, that's increased, it's up to 1.8. So it's been seesawing literally by 0.2 of a second pretty much every lap over the last 5 laps.
And we're on the final lap now, so it is looking pretty good for the Alinkel team. No sign yet of any switching around, and certainly you have to feel that Pastorelli and Dominic Schwager have earned a victory at last in the GT1 World Championship. They had a 2nd place finish a couple of races ago at Sachsenring. They managed to come home in 2nd there, but they have not as yet won a race. There is Marcus Winkelhock. Well, they had their victory yesterday in the qualifying race. They had the drive-through penalty, but thanks to Marcus's efforts in the first part of the race, the drive-through penalty has only lost them 1 position, and that really is quite incredible, and it does look as though we're all set for a 1-2.
Yes, it is. I think Lamborghini are going to go away from here very happy indeed. It looks like 5 victories out of 6 events. The GT3 race on Saturday being won by Albert von Turn and Taxis and Nicholas Meyerhoff in the Lamborghini Gallardo. So it is very much a Lamborghini circuit.
It is, and it'll become the 2nd win for Lamborghini this year, matching Aston Martin in terms of the brand that has had the most wins in championship races. But we always knew that the circuit near Pamplona would suit the bull, and it certainly has done. And it's done it in style, because it's going to be Lamborghinis 1 and 2 here at Navarra as Dominic Schwager and Nicky Pastorelli take their first win in the GT1 World Championship. Second place goes to their teammates and team manager Mark Basseng with Marcus Winkelhock. David Brabham matches his best result with Jamie Campbell-Walter in third. Fourth goes to Max Martin in the Ford GT. We're waiting for Andrea Piccini. Is he? Because Michael Krum is right there with him. I think Piccini's just done enough to stay ahead, and it is the Hex's Aston Martin that finishes in 5th place. Michael Krum really had a good shot at it, but he finishes in 6th. But that was still a great recovery from them. 7th is going to go to Michael Rossi, Dimitri Engelbert, their best ever result. Michael scores his first points in GT1, as does Dimitri, and they will be well chuffed with Clivia Piccioni and Steph Dusseldorp finishing in 8th place, Westbrook in 9th and Henrici in 10th. And John, no one really had an answer for the Al Incal team here in Spain this weekend.
Well, I think the thought of getting a double, winning Saturday, winning Sunday, was somewhat set back by the Pastorelli car, the Schweiger car that is one having to start from 5th on the grid after that engine change. And here they are winning the race, but Mark Basseng really was the winner, other than they had to do that drive-through.
Yeah, but that's all part and parcel. You've got to get your pit stops right, you've got to get your guys in the right place at the right time. So many things to think about, but it has to be done correctly. But they have still earned this victory. And for Dominic and Nicky, who have had so much bad luck in the early part of this season, remember they've been on pole position 3 times this year in qualifying races. But nearly always something went wrong, particularly in the early part of the season. They didn't complete a racing lap until we got to, I think it was Portugal, or they had problems everywhere. And suddenly now it has come good. And there you just saw the teammates of the 2 cars there walking down the pit lane, ready to receive their mates in the winner's enclosure in the pit lane. So top Nissan in the end, and indeed best of the rest, David Brabham and Jamie Campbell-Walter. So despite Jamie's upset after the pit stop, of course he felt that they could have beaten the Lamborghini out. That would have changed things, because they could, that is a bit of a thought, they might have ended up winning this race, Brabham and Campbell-Walter.
I think it's very possible, and that's one of the imponderables that you've got to deal with as a driver, and also within the team. Remember, you are a team member, you're not an individual within the team. So Jamie may well make a memo, send a memo to the team pointing out that as a consequence of what he felt was poorly management in that pit stop, they could have actually stood on the winner's podium here rather than standing in 3rd place.
Yeah, no, that is a real indicator. Because of the drive-through penalty for Basseng and Winkelhock, he wouldn't have been able to get back out in front, I don't think, of the Nissan in that case. So very, very interesting race, but well, the cards have all fallen in favour of Lamborghini, and let's not forget they've had the outright pace here as well, so they still have a deserved win, a double here, the 1-2, and it's the first time for Al Incal to have scored a 1-2 finish. And for the Munich Motorsport team, for René Munich himself, who is an enthusiastic racer, he does rallycross himself, team owner, but he's involved in all sorts of forms of motorsport, and this will be an absolutely wonderful moment for him to see his 2 cars there finishing 1st and 2nd. And well, look at the emotion.
I think it's a relief as much as joy that they finally got the win, that they knew that the capacity have, they got the pace for sure. And here in Navarra, the Lamborghini Murcielago has without question been the dominant manufacturer. And Mark Basseng, well, he'll not be too disappointed. It was a very minor infringement, but nonetheless it was an infringement. The tyre changer didn't quite get clear of the rear of the car before the car was released.
Yeah, and these guys at last, you can sort of sense the relief for them, because they've been in front running positions and for so long. We saw Jamie Campbell-Walter walk in the background, still looking, well, I think he certainly realised their situation, but they've got a podium out of it. So Jamie and David Brabham have matched their best result of the season. They've ended up as top Nissan, and with that amazing driver lineup at Nissan, I think it's always an achievement. Whichever Nissan comes out on top at the end of the weekend, I think you can feel very, very satisfied.
Well, as we said at the start of the year in Abu Dhabi, within Nissan you've got 8 extremely competitive individuals, and they are individuals, although they all put up the team front and say we're team players, but they do feel strongly that they don't want to be annexed by any of the other 7.
Yeah, that's right, but they've got their podium finish at least, and although, as we say, might have been a victory in different circumstances, it's 3rd. Let's go down to our winners now.
Congratulations, Dominic. What a weekend you've had.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, it's almost unbelievable. I mean, it's strange to be really happy because we were always so close. Yesterday we had the fastest car, just always something happened. So finally, I was not sure what will happen in the last 5 minutes, but it worked out. Of course, our teammates have been a bit unlucky, but I think to be unlucky with second place, they can live with it. And I think we missed out on many podiums already. So finally, this victory is just good for us and obviously really for our crew. They did an amazing job, and it keeps the motivation up again.
And congratulations, Nicky. The team are really on it this year, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I can only say one thing, finally. I mean, we should have been here already so many times, and now we finally did it, so I hope there will be more.
Thank you, guys.
The only driver lineup that is the same from last year, and they have finally come through to take the win. But it was a great stop by the Alinkel team because they turned that car around. They beat was it 2 or 3 other teams in the pit lane?
Well, in effect, they made the overtakes in the pit lane, which they would have really struggled to do because in spite of the pace that the Lamborghini has got, it's only got that pace when it's running on its own.
Yeah. Let's go down to our second place finishers now.
Congratulations, Mark. You were issued a penalty. Do you agree with it?
I have to look at the video. I mean, I'm still happy. Second place with a drive-through penalty. Who can that say from himself? I'm happy for the other car that they have their first victory, so we have the same team effort, and that's where we are here. And I think, Mark, you can be happy. I think we made good points in the championship, did a great job, and I did my best to get the car in second place over the finish line.
Congratulations, Marcus. I think this has got to be the Alinkel track now rather than just the Lamborghini track.
Absolutely, yeah. It was our weekend, I would say. Unfortunately, we couldn't win the race today. Anyway, I'm really happy, as Mark said, with the drive-through penalty, finishing second on the podium. I think that's a good result. And we're leading in the championship now. I don't know the gap exactly, but I think we're in a good position now. And now I'm looking forward for next race weekend. I hope the car's quite similar good as it here was.
Thank you.
So Mark Basseng off to get a well-earned drink, I should think, after that.
Yeah, and it gets hot in these cars, even though they're only in the car 25 or 28 minutes. And there you see just the moment when the Lamborghini moved before the tyre engineer or the mechanic was able to clear the back of the car. Again, that's down to whoever it is, the team manager, whoever's in charge of control of these pit stops before the exit of the pit stop.
Right, let's get down to the third place finishers.
David, congratulations. Did you expect to be the fastest Nissan here this weekend?
Well, obviously we came into the weekend hoping so, but the guys did a fantastic job and gave us a really good car in the race here in the championship race to get third. Jamie did a stellar job at the beginning, put us in great position, and it was a great fight at the end. We didn't have enough, obviously, for the Lamborghinis, but a close third is very good.
Congratulations, Jamie. Happy now?
I'm, always happy to take a podium, and great job by the whole Sumo Power team. Nissan GT1 has been fantastic all weekend, really. Qualifying was great for us, and so has the race been. So, it's a good result, and we're really happy.
Thank you, guys.
Well, Jamie certainly spat the dummy after his driving stint, but goes into corporate speak now that he's on the podium.
Yes, that's right. Well, he's got that podium finish. Let's take a look now at the result. So Lamborghini take a 1-2. Alinkel.com dominating the championship race here. But the drive-through penalty still didn't stop Mark Basseng and Marcus Finkelhoff from finishing second. Nissan finished in third, courtesy of Jamie and David Brabham. And then in fourth place, Bertrand Baguette and Max Martens. It's been a great weekend for Bertrand Baguette on his debut in the series. Hohen Ardel and Piccini finished in fifth. Buller and Krum got home in sixth place despite being hit a few times over the weekend. Good result for Engelbert and Rossi in 7th. Piccioni and Dusseldorp finished in 8th place. 9th went to the other Nissan of Dumbreck and Westbrook after their drive-through penalty. Linders and Henerici finished in 10th position. Out of the points, Nygaard and Ix in the number 9 Belgian Racing 4. Benoldi and Katzberg, they had a drive-through to cope with 2. And then the Aston Martin number 7 car of Thomas Enger and Alex Muller. And then a few cars that didn't make it to the finish, I'm afraid. The Claire Leclerc car, Turner and Mucker's Aston, and Mike Hazeman's Corvette. So the 1-2 for Alinkel.com. We've got the stunt planes joining us once again. They were doing some flying here over the earlier part of the weekend. Very impressive to see them. David Brabham and Jamie Campbell-Walter then up onto the third spot. I see Jamie nipped up onto the top spot for just a second there. Feeling as maybe that was a little signal to the team.
Well, I think he's still putting it out. I mean, even when he was waiting to speak to Haley, you could see the quiver in his bottom lip. He's still got that pent-up frustration, and it takes a good, I don't know to get rid of it. Maybe a couple of glasses of wine might relax him later on.
So there we go. There is the Dominic Schweger on the left, Nicky Pastorelli on the right. And time for the anthem. So the German team, with its Italian driver and German driver Dominic Schweger, these two who have been such good friends and colleagues within that team for the last 2 years now. Actually, Nicky is sort of dual nationality because he's Dutch, in fact, even though he's got the Italian name, Nicky Pastorelli, former European Formula 3000 champion. That was back in 2004, Nicky Pastorelli, and was in fact a Jordan F1 tester briefly, 2005.
Yeah, but who hasn't?
I know, well, there were a few of them.
Not a lot, not a few.
Champ cars he raced in 2006. There we are looking at Mark Basseng, though, and Marcus Winkelhock. And for Mark particularly, what a proud moment to have all four of them up there on the podium represented. It's really a special day for them. And then the trophies going out there to Dominic and to Nicky. And there we are. Absolutely what they've been looking for a long time now. And it's finally come their way. Coming into this event, they were sitting only 9th place in the championship, so a victory here is certainly going to boost their chances. They were 10th last time out at Silverstone. That second place, I mentioned earlier, at Sachsenring, their best result to date. But they did have a 4th place finish at Portimao. Before that, in the early part of the season, they had no finishes at either Abu Dhabi or Zolder. And now they can put that all behind them and look forward to Paul Ricard in a couple of weeks' time, hoping that their luck really has changed.
Well, a totally different venue, Paul Ricard, with that monstrous straight, the Mulsanne, not the Mulsanne straight, that's Le Mans. But it is a big circuit, totally different to Navarra, which is a much tighter, more compact. And really, that's the circuit here at Navarra that suited the Lamborghini, because fundamentally it was all about managing the rubber, the tyre, and making sure that you didn't use it up, and they were the best placed with the performance to take victory twice.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Look at that, lovely shots. And the cameramen all gathered down below the podium will be getting some great stills for the reports tomorrow. And in Germany, certainly, I'm sure they'll be getting lots of publicity, because it's a very strong result for a German-based team. Italian car it might be, the Lamborghini, but it's the Alinkel guys that have looked after it so well.
It's interesting that David Brabham and Jamie Campbell-Walter are nowhere to be seen. They decided to vacate the podium at the earliest opportunity. They may want to spray their champagne privately.
Indeed. So 2 Lamborghinis, 1 Nissan in the winner's enclosure, and there are the stunt planes about to put on their display. Just to entertain the crowds. And it has been a good crowd here at Navarra this weekend. Lovely to see so many people attending the race this weekend. And well, we'll have to wait and see whether GT1 becomes a regular feature of this Navarra circuit. Certainly the first 2 events here have provided some entertaining racing and building some support here as well. So as you say, John, in a couple of weeks' time they will be going to Paul Ricard. It will be a different story there, and we'll see the different strengths of the respective cars coming to the fore. But here at Navarra, there's been no doubt about it. It has been a fantastic weekend for Lamborghini. Let's take a look now at the highlights of that race. Weather conditions this afternoon have been ideal, so everybody was enjoying some sunshine on the grid before we got ready for the start of the 1-hour championship race. And at that start, the Lamborghini, first of all, of Marcus Winkelhock got the initial getaway. But as ever, John, we saw an incident into the first couple of corners.
Yes, it was into turn 2, but principally into turn 3. That contact was made, and you saw then Michael, it was actually Lucas Luhr, who got spun around. and the penalty had to be served out by Thomas Enger. He was judged to be the guilty party. He saw a gap, he went for it. If he hadn't gone for it, somebody else would have done.
Now, meanwhile, Bertrand Baguette was making his famous attempts up the inside into turn 15. That one didn't work on that occasion, but he was able to get past the Hexis Aston Martin a little further round. Meanwhile, the drivers got ready for pit stops. David Brabham prepared to take over from Jamie Campbell-Walter as Baguette managed to nip past the Corvette, which Engelbert was driving so effectively. This was a spin for Bas Linders down at turn 3.
Yeah, it's just got too wide, and of course the back end of the car, a little grip there, and around she went.
Now, the pit stops proved to be very crucial as ever, because the Nissan team seemed to hold themselves up a little bit. There was an unsafe release called for Richard Westbrook, which earned him and Peter Dunbrek a drive-through penalty, and Jamie Campbell-Walter seemed a little upset that their car had lost time in the pits. The Lamborghinis, though, were very fast on their pit stops. The 37 car had managed to move up to second courtesy of its very quick stop. A drive-through penalty then for the 38 car meant that number 37 took over the lead, but Basseng was able to hold on to second.
But they did struggle with a brake problem in the closing moments, the inside wheel, the right in particular. The unloaded wheel beginning to cause a lock-up and a concern about tyre out of balance.
Well, that's it from Navarra. We'll be back with all the action from Paul Ricard in a couple of weeks. Thanks for joining us. See you again soon. Bye-bye.